Hey, it's the Midnight Narrator here. I hope your day treated you well. The radio woke me at 3:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I've been staring at the clock for 20 minutes, waiting for sleep that wouldn't come. The lookout tower creaked in the wind, a gentle sway, and I was still getting used to, and my sleeping bag smelled like the storage shed it had lived in for the past decade. Everything up here smelled like dust and old wood and something I couldn't name, something patient. The crackle came first, just static, the kind that fills the air like an insect hum, and then, Prospect Point, you copy? A man's voice, calm, a little rough, like he'd just woken up too. I sat up fast enough that my head spun. The radio sat on the desk across the tiny room, its green power light glowing soft in the dark. I'd turned it off before bed. I was sure of it. Prospect Point, this is Tower 7. You there? My hand found the flashlight. The beam cut through the cabin, throwing shadows that moved wrong, and I fumbled my way to the desk. The radio's dial was set to the Ranger frequency, Channel 4. My fingers hovered over the receiver. It's just dispatch, I told myself. Some night shift ranger checking in. I pressed the button. This is Prospect Point. Copy. My voice came out thin. The static swallowed it for a second, and then, oh, thank God, thought I was going crazy over here. He laughed. It sounded real, relieved. Sorry to wake you. Couldn't sleep. Saw your light on and figured, I don't know, misery loves company, right? I glanced at the window. My lantern was off, but maybe he meant something else. Tower 7, I said. I didn't know there was another tower close by. Yeah, just over the ridge, about 4 miles northeast, give or take. You're new, right? I heard them say someone was coming up to Prospect for the season. Started 3 days ago. How's it treating you? I looked around the cabin, 14 feet by 14 feet. A cot, a desk, a 2-burner stove, a chemical toilet behind a curtain I tried not to think about, windows on all sides, a catwalk that circled the whole structure 40 feet above the ground, surrounded by trees so thick you couldn't see the forest floor. It's quiet, I said. Yeah, it is. A pause, not awkward, just there, like we were two people standing in a room deciding whether to keep talking. I'm Garrett, he said finally. Maya. Nice to meet you, Maya, even if it's just voices in the dark. You too. We talked for 11 minutes. I know because I checked the clock afterward, trying to convince myself it had happened. He asked where I was from, Portland. What made me take the job? I lied and said I liked hiking. Whether I'd seen any lightning yet? No. I asked him how long he'd been up here. This was his 3rd season, if he ever got bored, sometimes. But the sunsets helped. Whether the isolations got to him. He paused before answering. That one. You get used to your own company, or you don't. His voice was easy, the kind that made you forget you were talking to a stranger, and then, mid-sentence, he was saying something about a black bear he'd seen last week. The static surged, a wave of white noise that ate his words and then nothing, just the hum of the empty channel. Garrett? Silence. Tower 7? You still there? Nothing. I waited 5 minutes before I turned the radio off. My hands were shaking, though I wasn't sure why. I climbed back into the sleeping bag and lay there, staring at the ceiling beams, listening to the wind push against the tower. I told myself I'd imagined it, but I didn't believe me. Chapter 1. Arrival. Week 1. The helicopter that dropped me off didn't stay long. I remember standing on the landing pad, a wooden platform bolted to the rocks about 100 yards from the tower, watching the pilot unload my gear with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He didn't make small talk, just handed me a duffel bag, a crate of supplies, and a laminated card with emergency numbers I'd probably never be able to call. "Radio check every day at noon," he said, shouting over the rotors. "Don't miss it. If we don't hear from you for 48 hours, we send someone up." Got it. Weather turns fast up here. You see lightning, you get inside and stay low. Don't touch metal. Okay. He looked at me for a second, like he was deciding whether to say something else. Then he just nodded and climbed back into the cockpit. The helicopter lifted, tilted, and disappeared over the ridge, leaving me alone with the wind and the trees and a silence so big it had weight. I dragged my gear to the tower. The structure was older than I'd expected. Wood and glass perched on 4 metal stilts that looked too thin to hold it, but somehow did. A staircase zigzagged up the side, each step groaning under my boots. By the time I reached the top, my legs were burning, and I was breathing hard. The door was unlocked. Inside, exactly what I'd been promised. Small, functional. A desk beneath the windows, a cot in the corner, a propane stove, a shelf of canned food and fire maps. Everything labeled, organized, sterile. It smelled like it had been closed up for months, which it had. I set my bag down and turned in a slow circle. This was home for the next 3 months. I tried to feel something about that, relief maybe, or dread, but all I felt was tired. The ranger who trained me, a guy named Carl, had spent exactly 4 hours walking me through the job. He'd met me at the trailhead 2 days earlier, led me up the access road in his truck, and rattled off instructions like he was reading from a script. How to use the Osborne Fire Finder, a circular contraption with a rotating sight for pinpointing smoke. How to fill out the log. How to identify cloud types. How to tell the difference between a controlled burn and a wildfire. "You see smoke, you radio it in," he said. "You see lightning, you log it. You see people where they shouldn't be, you report it. That's the job. That's it. That's it. Rest of the time, you're just here." He didn't ask why I wanted to be here. I was grateful for that. On my first night alone, I sat on the catwalk and watched the sun go down. The sky bled orange and pink, and then deep purple, and the trees below turned black, swallowing the light. I could see for miles in every direction. Ridges stacked on ridges, valleys choked with fir and pine, no roads, no houses, nothing human except me and this tower. And far to the northeast, maybe 4 miles out, another tower. I hadn't noticed it during the day, but as the light faded, I saw it. A dark silhouette on the next ridge, identical to mine. A twin. I squinted, trying to make out details, but the distance turned it into a shape. Nothing more. Carl hadn't mentioned another tower. I went inside, checked the maps on the desk, found Prospect Point, my location, marked in red. Traced my finger northeast. There, in faint pencil, Tower 7, decommissioned. I looked out the window again. The silhouette was still there. Decommissioned didn't mean gone, I guessed. I made dinner. Canned soup heated on the stove, eaten straight from the pot because I didn't feel like washing dishes. And tried to read a book I'd brought. Some thriller I'd picked up at the airport. I made it 3 pages before I realized I hadn't absorbed a single word. My mind kept circling back to the same thing. The EMT call 6 months ago. The one I couldn't stop seeing every time I closed my eyes. I won't go into details, not yet. But I'll say this. I froze, just for a few seconds, and a girl died because of it. I quit 2 weeks later, spent the next 5 months doing nothing, sleeping badly, avoiding my phone. When I saw the job posting for the fire lookout, I applied the same day. No experience required, no people, just you, a radio, and the sky. It sounded like exactly what I needed. That first week, I settled into the routine. Wake at dawn, scan the horizon with binoculars checking for smoke, log the weather, temperature, wind speed, cloud cover, make coffee, eat something, read, scan again at noon, radio check with dispatch. A woman named Carla, whose voice was flat and professional and made it clear she didn't want conversation. Scan at dusk, make dinner, try to sleep. The silence was enormous. I'm not talking about quiet, I'm talking about silence. The kind where you become aware of your own heartbeat, your breathing, the creak of your jaw when you chew. The kind where, after a few days, you start talking to yourself just to hear a voice. I liked it, I think, or I told myself I did. On day 5, the radio crackled at 9 p.m., and Garrett's voice came through. Prospect Point, you copy? I froze. I'd almost convinced myself that first conversation had been a dream, a weird, half-asleep hallucination brought on by exhaustion and too much solitude. But here he was again, calm and clear, like we'd just talked yesterday. I picked up the receiver. Tower 7? Hey, Maya, glad you're still awake. Yeah. Couldn't sleep again. Thought I'd check in. That okay? I didn't know how to answer that. Was it okay? I didn't know this guy. He could be anyone. But the truth was, I wanted to talk. God, I wanted to talk. Sure, I said. Yeah, what's up? And just like that, we fell into it. Easy. Natural. He asked how my first week had gone. I told him about the routine, the maps, the way the tower swayed when the wind picked up. He laughed at that. Said his did the same thing, that you never really got used to it. I asked him about the area, whether he'd seen any fires this season. He said no, not yet, but it had been dry. Lightning was the real risk. We talked for 40 minutes. I didn't notice how long it had been until he said he should probably get some sleep, and I realized the sky outside had gone fully dark. Same time tomorrow? He asked. Maybe, I said. I'll take that as a yes. Night, Maya. Night. The static swallowed him, and I sat there in the quiet, the receiver still in my hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Less alone. Chapter 2, Tower 7. By the second week, talking to Garrett had become part of the routine. Not every night, but most. He'd radio around the same time, sometime between 8 and 10, and we'd talk for half an hour, maybe longer. About nothing, really. The weather, books we'd read, stupid things we'd seen animals do. He told me about a fox that had started showing up near his tower at dusk, sitting just outside the stairs like it was waiting for something. I told him about the mice I kept hearing in the walls, skittering around at night, and he laughed and said I should name them. Give them personalities, he said. Makes it less creepy. Does it? No, but it's funny. I found myself looking forward to those conversations, more than I wanted to admit. During the day, I'd catch myself rehearsing things to tell him, funny observations, questions about the forest. Anything to fill the space between us that felt less empty when his voice was there. He had this way of talking that made everything sound, I don't know, manageable. Like the isolation wasn't something to survive, but something to just be in. He'd describe watching storms roll in from his tower, the way lightning would fork between ridges, how the whole sky would turn green right before hail. He made it sound beautiful instead of terrifying. "You ever been up here during a big storm?" I asked him one night. "Oh, yeah. Summer of '92. We had this monster system come through. Wind so strong I thought the whole tower was going to tip. I just sat in the middle of the floor with my hands over my head, waiting for it to pass." "Jesus?" "Yeah, but when it cleared, Maya, I've never seen stars like that. The air gets so clean after a storm. You can see the Milky Way like a river." I looked out my window at the night sky, clear, crowded with stars. "It's pretty incredible up here," I said quietly. "Yeah, it is." A pause. Comfortable. "You doing okay?" he asked. "I mean, really okay?" The question caught me off guard. Most people didn't ask it that way. They asked how you were doing, expecting fine or good or some other placeholder answer. But "are you okay?" was different. It wanted the truth. "I don't know," I said. "Fair enough. Why'd you ask?" "Because people don't usually take this job unless they're running from something, or toward something, or both." I didn't answer right away. Outside, the wind moved through the trees with a sound like water. "What about you?" I asked finally. "What are you running from?" He was quiet for a long moment. Static filled the gap. "Myself, mostly," he said. "Turns out you can't outrun that, but you can get far enough away that it's just you and the problem, nobody else watching. Makes it easier to look at, I guess." "Does it?" "Sometimes. Other times it just means you're alone with it." I thought about the girl in the car, the way her eyes had found mine in those last seconds. The sound she'd made when... I shook my head, pushed it down. "Yeah," I said, "I get that." We didn't talk much after that. Just sat with the silence between us, the static, a kind of presence. Eventually, he said goodnight, and I did too. And then I was alone again. But it felt different now, like the alone had company. The next morning, I got curious. I'd been meaning to get a better look at Tower 7 since I'd arrived, but the days had been overcast, the visibility poor. Today, though, the sky was sharp and blue, the kind of clarity that made distances collapse. I took my binoculars out onto the catwalk. The tower was there, exactly where I'd seen it that first night. 4 miles northeast, perched on a ridge that rose above the tree line. I adjusted the focus, bringing it into detail. It looked operational. I don't know what I'd expected. The map said decommissioned, so I'd pictured something abandoned, boarded windows maybe, peeling paint. But through the binoculars, Tower 7 looked just like mine. The glass caught the morning light. The catwalk circled the cabin intact, and I squinted. Was that smoke? A thin curl rising from the roof, like someone had a fire going inside. I lowered the binoculars, blinked, raised them again. Still there. It didn't make sense. It was late June, warm enough during the day that I barely used my stove except to boil water. Why would someone need a fire? I went inside and grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Prospect Point. You copy?" Carla's voice came through after a few seconds, bored as ever. "Copy, Prospect Point. Go ahead." "Quick question. Tower 7 northeast of my position. Is that still active?" A pause. "Tower 7 is Decommissioned. Has been for years. Why? I can see it from here. Looks like someone's there. There's smoke coming from the roof. Another pause. Longer this time. You sure you're looking at Tower 7? I'm looking at the coordinates on the map. 47.6, 121.3. That's it, right? That's it. But there's no one there, Maya. Structure's been closed since the mid-90s. You're probably seeing morning mist off the ridge. Happens a lot up there. I looked through the binoculars again. The smoke was still rising, steady and deliberate. Doesn't look like mist. Well, I'm telling you there's no one assigned to that tower. If you want, I can send someone up to check it out, but it'll take a few days. No, that's okay. Just seemed weird. Everything seems weird when you're alone long enough. You'll get used to it. Anything else? No, that's it. Copy. Dispatch out. The line went dead. I stood there on the catwalk staring at Tower 7. The smoke kept rising, thin, steady. Morning mist didn't move like that. That night, Garrett radioed at 8:47. Hey, Maya, how's your day? I hesitated. Good. Quiet. Hey, can I ask you something? Sure. You got a fire going, right? In your stove? A beat of silence. Yeah. Why? I can see your tower from here. Saw smoke this morning. Just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Oh, yeah, no, everything's fine. Just making coffee. Gets cold up here in the mornings, you know? It's June. Yeah, but we're at, 6,000 feet? Doesn't matter what month it is, cold's cold. That made sense, I guess. But something about it still felt off. Dispatch said Tower 7's been decommissioned, I said carefully. Silence. Long enough that I thought I'd lost him. Maya, he said finally, and his voice was different, quieter. Why are you asking me this? I'm trying to figure out what's going on. They said no one's supposed to be there. And you believe them over me? I didn't say that. But you're asking. The static between us felt heavier now. I didn't know what to say. I've been here 3 years, he said. Every summer, same tower, same job. I don't know what dispatch told you, but I'm here. You've been talking to me. You know I'm here. I know. Do you? The question hung in the air. Yeah, I said, I do. He exhaled. I could hear it through the speaker. Okay, good. Sorry, sometimes they forget about me out here. Paperwork gets screwed up. It's not the first time someone's asked if I'm supposed to be here. That sounds frustrating. You have no idea. We talked for a while longer, but the ease from before was gone. The conversation felt careful, like we were both stepping around something neither of us wanted to name. When he signed off, I sat at the desk and stared at the radio. Everything he had said made sense. So why didn't I believe him? I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Tower 7, about the smoke, about the way Garrett's voice had changed when I'd asked him about it. At 2:30 a.m., I gave up on sleep and pulled out the cabinet beneath the desk. I'd noticed it when I first arrived, an old wooden file drawer stuffed with papers, but I hadn't bothered looking through it. Just maps and supply manifests, I'd assumed. I pulled it open. Inside, a stack of ranger logs. Handwritten, some of them decades old. I flipped through the first few. Weather reports, maintenance notes, sightings of wildlife, boring bureaucratic stuff. Then I found one dated August 1994. The handwriting was shaky, hurried. Tower 7 went dark tonight. Radio cut out mid-transmission. Carl and I tried reaching Garrett for 2 hours. Nothing. Smoke visible from the ridge at dawn. They're saying he didn't make it out. I stopped breathing. Fire marshal went up this morning. Tower's gutted. No body recovered. 'Cause still under investigation, but they think it started in the stove. Faulty propane line, maybe. Whole structure's a loss. Carl's taking it hard. We all are. Garrett was a good guy. I flipped the page. August 15th, 1994. Memorial service today. Garrett's family came up from Eugene. His mom kept asking if we were sure he was gone. I didn't know what to tell her. There's nothing left to bury. I closed the log. My hands were shaking. I stood up, crossed to the window, and looked out at Tower 7. It was dark. No lights, no smoke, just a silhouette against the stars. And then, as I watched, a light flickered on inside. Warm, yellow, like someone had just lit a lantern. I grabbed the binoculars. Through the glass I could see the interior of the cabin. A desk, a cot, a figure moving past the window. The light went out. I stood there, heart pounding, staring into the dark. The radio crackled behind me. Maya? I spun around. You still awake? Garrett's voice. Calm, easy. I didn't move. I know it's late, but I wanted to say I'm sorry for earlier. I didn't mean to snap at you. I picked up the receiver. My hand was shaking so hard I almost dropped it. Garrett, I said slowly, what year is it? Static. What? What year is it? A long pause. It's 1994. Why? I closed my eyes. End of fire season. How's it been so far? Dry, real dry. We're all on edge. Why are you asking me this? Have you seen any smoke from your tower? Not yet, he said. But I can smell it sometimes, like something's burning far away. Can't ever figure out where it's coming from. My throat felt tight. Garrett, I whispered, do I know what? I couldn't say it, couldn't get the words out. Never mind. Maya, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, just tired. You sure? Yeah, a beat. Get some sleep, he said gently. We'll talk tomorrow. The line went dead. I stood there in the dark, staring at the radio, and then I turned and looked out the window at Tower 7. The light was back on, and in the glass, just for a second, I saw a figure standing on the catwalk, looking back at me. Chapter 3. The Logs. I didn't radio Garrett the next day, or the day after that. I told myself I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what the hell was happening. But the truth was simpler. I was scared, not of him exactly, of what talking to him might mean. The Ranger log sat on my desk where I'd left them, still open to that page from August 1994. I must have read it 20 times looking for something I'd missed. Some detail that would make it make sense. Garrett was a good guy. Past tense. I pulled out more logs, went back further, found entries from earlier that summer written in a different hand. Neat, methodical. Garrett's handwriting, maybe. June 3rd, 1994. Clear skies. Wind from the northwest, 5 to 10 mph. Saw a black bear near the creek this morning. Big one. Didn't seem bothered by me watching. June 18th, 1994. Lightning strikes on the South Ridge last night. Logged 12 separate strikes between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. No fires spotted yet. July 20th, 1994. Radio's been acting up. Keeps cutting in and out. Carl says they'll send someone to look at it, but I'm not holding my breath. Sometimes I'll be mid-sentence and it just stops, like someone hit a switch. Then it comes back a minute later, like nothing happened. I stopped reading. The radio on my desk sat silent. I'd turned it off after that last conversation with Garrett, and I hadn't turned it back on, even for the daily dispatch check. Carla had probably noticed by now, but I didn't care. Outside the day was bright and warm, normal. The forest stretched in every direction, green and indifferent. Through the window, I could see Tower 7 on its ridge, just a structure, nothing more, no smoke today. I made coffee, tried to eat something, couldn't. My mind kept circling back to the same question. If Garrett died in 1994, who the hell have I been talking to? A ghost? That felt too simple, too clean. Ghosts were supposed to be stuck, repeating the same patterns, unaware they were dead. But Garrett seemed present, responsive. He reacted to what I said, remembered our conversations, asked follow-up questions, unless I grabbed a pen and paper and started writing down everything I could remember from our talks, dates, times, what we'd discussed. The first conversation, he'd mentioned it, was his third season. That would put him in 1994, if he'd started in 92. He'd talked about a storm in 92 like it had just happened. He'd asked me what year it was, and when I said 2024, he'd acted confused. No, not confused. He'd ignored it, changed the subject. And last night, when I'd asked him what year it was, he'd said 1994 without hesitation. I put the pen down. He wasn't haunting the tower. He was in 1994, still living it. And somehow I was talking to him across 30 years, which meant I looked at the log again. August 1994. Fire. No body recovered, which meant it hadn't happened yet. Not for him. I lasted 2 more days before I turned the radio back on. It was stupid, I know, dangerous even, but the silence had become unbearable. I'd started talking to myself just to hear a voice. Full conversations, arguments about nothing, one-sided debates about whether I should hike down and leave. The mice in the walls weren't enough company anymore. I'd named them, like Garrett suggested. Simon, Theodore, and Dave, because why not? But they didn't talk back. I needed him. That was the truth I didn't want to look at. I flipped the radio on at 8 hours p.m. and waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15, nothing. Maybe he'd given up. Maybe he thought I was ignoring him, or maybe... Prospect Point, you copy? His voice, quiet, tentative. I grabbed the receiver. I'm here. A long exhale on the other end. Relief. Jesus, I don't know what I thought. You went dark for 3 days. I know. I'm sorry. You okay? Did something happen? I just needed some time to think. About what? About you being dead, I didn't say. About the fact that I'm talking to someone who's supposed to have burned alive 30 years ago. About how none of this should be possible. Just the isolation, I said, gets to you, you know? Yeah, I get that. Silence. The static between us felt fragile. I miss talking to you, he said finally. Something in my chest tightened. Me too. We didn't talk about anything important that night. Just small things. Safe things. He told me about a family of deer he'd seen that morning, how the fawns were still wobbly on their legs. I told him I'd finally finished the thriller I'd been reading, that the ending was predictable but satisfying enough. It felt normal, and maybe that was the worst part. Over the next week, I fell back into the routine, scans at dawn, noon, and dusk. Daily dispatch check. Carla asked where I'd been. I lied and said the radio had broken. Conversations with Garrett most evenings, sometimes late into the night, but I started testing him. Gently, carefully. I'd mentioned something from 2024, a movie, a piece of technology, and watch how he reacted. He never corrected me directly, just didn't engage, changed the subject, like his brain couldn't process the information, so it just slid off. "Have you ever thought about getting a smartphone up here?" I asked one night. "For emergencies?" "A what?" "You know, a cell phone, but smarter." "Cell phones don't work up here," he said. "Towers can't reach. That's why we've got the radios." "Right, of course." I tried another angle. "What do you do when you're not scanning? Like, for fun?" "Read, mostly. I've got a stack of paperbacks up here, mystery novels mostly. Some westerns. There's only so many times you can read the same Louis L'Amour before you go crazy, but—" He laughed. "What about you?" "Same, I guess. I brought a Kindle, but the battery's already running low." "A what?" "Never mind. Just a book thing." He didn't push, but the more we talked, the more I noticed other things. He never mentioned anything current. No politics, no news, nothing that placed him in a specific time beyond that summer of '94. His world was small. The tower, the forest, the weather, the fire watch, nothing else seemed to exist for him, and he talked about the future like it was guaranteed. "When I get down from here in September," he said one night, "first thing I'm doing is getting a burger, a real one, not this canned crap." I didn't tell him he wouldn't make it to September. I couldn't. On the 10th day after I'd found the logs, I hiked toward Tower 7. I wasn't supposed to leave my post except in emergencies, but I didn't care anymore. I needed to see it up close, needed to prove to myself that it was real or wasn't, or I don't know. I just needed to know. The trail was overgrown but still visible. Someone had used it once, a long time ago. I followed it northeast, through dense stands of Douglas fir and patches of huckleberry, the ground soft with decades of fallen needles. It should have taken 2 hours. After 45 minutes, I came to a ridge I didn't recognize. I stopped, pulled out my map. According to the coordinates, I should be halfway to Tower 7 by now, but the terrain didn't match. The ridge on the map was gentler, with a creek running parallel. This ridge was steep, rocky, and there was no water anywhere. I kept going. 30 minutes later, I found myself standing at the base of my own tower. I looked up at it, at the catwalk circling the cabin, at my laundry hanging from the railing, a pair of socks and a shirt I'd washed yesterday, and my brain just stopped. I'd been walking northeast. I was sure of it. I'd checked the compass every 10 minutes. But somehow I'd looped back. I turned around and looked at the forest. It seemed the same as it had an hour ago. Same trees, same shadows. But something about it felt wrong now, like the space between things had shifted. I tried again. This time I made it an hour before the forest looped me back to the tower, and again, and again. On the 4th attempt, I gave up and climbed the stairs back to the cabin. My legs were shaking, not from exhaustion, from fear. I grabbed the binoculars and went out onto the catwalk. Tower 7 was still there, same distance, same ridge, untouchable. I radioed Garrett that night, earlier than usual. "Tower 7, you copy?" "Maya? Hey, yeah, I'm here. What's up? You sound—" "Have you ever tried to leave your tower?" Silence. "What do you mean?" "Like, hike down. Go somewhere else. Have you tried?" "Well, yeah, I go down to the creek sometimes, get water. Why?" "What about further? Have you ever tried to reach another tower or the access road?" A long pause. No, I mean, I'm supposed to stay here. That's the job. But you could, right? If you wanted to? I guess. I've never thought about it. Can you try? Tomorrow. Just see how far you can get. Maya, what's going on? Please, just try. He didn't answer right away. I could hear him breathing on the other end, the static rising and falling with it. Okay, he said finally. I'll try. He radioed the next night at 9:15. You're not going to believe this. What happened? I tried to hike down to the access road. Should have taken me an hour, maybe 90 minutes. I walked for 3 hours, Maya, 3. And I ended up back at my tower. I don't understand how that's possible. I was following the trail the whole time. My hands tightened on the receiver. It happened to me, too, I said quietly. Yesterday, I tried to reach your tower, kept ending up back at mine. What the hell is going on? I don't know. This doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. The trail doesn't just loop. That's not how geography works. I know. He was quiet for a long time. I could hear the fear in the silence. Maya, he said finally, and his voice was different now, smaller. Am I going crazy? No, you're not. Then what's happening to us? I looked out the window at Tower 7. The light was on inside, warm against the darkness. I stopped, started again. I think we're stuck, both of us, in something. Stuck how? I don't know yet. But you have a theory. I did. God help me, I did. But I couldn't tell him, not yet. Chapter 4. Questions. I stopped answering the radio for dispatch. Not on purpose at first. I just forget. The noon check-in would come and go, and I'd be sitting at the desk staring at the logs or out on the catwalk watching Tower 7. And suddenly, it would be 2 in the afternoon, and Carla's voice would be crackling through, annoyed, asking if I was still alive. After the 3rd missed check-in, she threatened to send someone up. This is your final warning, Prospect Point. You missed tomorrow's check. We're pulling you out. You copy? Copy, I said. Sorry, won't happen again. It happened again, but no one came. I wondered about that, whether they'd actually forgotten or whether something about this place made it easy to forget. Like I was slipping through the cracks of their attention the same way the forest kept swallowing the trails. The only voice I wanted to hear was Garrett's. That should have scared me more than it did. We talked every night now, sometimes for hours. The conversations had changed. Less small talk, more circling around a thing neither of us wanted to name. We'd gotten good at talking around it, asking questions that felt safe but weren't. Do you remember arriving at the tower? I asked him one night. Like the actual day? The helicopter dropping you off? Yeah, of course. Why? What do you remember about it? A pause. I could hear him thinking. It was June, early June. The pilot was this older guy, didn't say much, helped me unload my gear and took off. Standard stuff. What did you do after? That first night? I unpacked, made dinner, checked the equipment, same as anyone would. And before that, before you came up here, what were you doing? Longer pause. I lived in Eugene, had a place near campus, worked part-time at a bookstore during the off-season. What bookstore? Smith Family, it's on Willamette Street. What about before that? Before Eugene? Maya, why are you asking me this? Just curious. It feels like an interrogation. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand something. Understand what? I didn't answer. Outside, the wind was picking up. I could hear it moving through the trees, a low rushing sound like the forest was breathing. "You're trying to figure out if I'm real," he said quietly. My throat went tight. "No, that's not. It's okay. I've been wondering the same thing about you." I stood up, crossed to the window, looked out at Tower 7. The light was on, steady and warm. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't know. Something feels off. Has for a while, like I'm forgetting things or remembering things wrong. The days blur together. I'll think it's July and then I'll check the log and it's still June. I'll think I just talked to you yesterday, but it's been 3 days. Time moves different up here," I said. "The isolation does that." "Maybe, or maybe it's something else." "Like what?" He didn't answer for a long time. The static filled the space between us, rising and falling like breath. "Maya, can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "Do you think it's possible to be dead and not know it?" My hand tightened on the receiver. "What makes you ask that?" "I don't know. Just sometimes I'll wake up and I won't remember falling asleep, or I'll smell smoke when nothing's burning, or I'll see things that don't make sense." "What kind of things?" "Lights in the forest, shapes moving between the trees, and once—" He stopped. "Once what?" "Once I saw someone standing at the base of my tower, just standing there looking up. I called down to them, but they didn't answer. And when I went down to check, there was no one there, no footprints, nothing. I felt cold. When did this happen? 2 days ago. 3? I don't know. Time's weird." I looked at the logs on my desk. August 1994. Fire. No body recovered. "Garrett," I said carefully, "what if I told you that something was going to happen? Something bad, and that you needed to be ready for it?" "What are you talking about?" "I can't explain it. Not yet. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "Maya, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. But just watch the stove, okay? Check the propane line. Make sure everything's sealed properly." "Why?" "Please, just do it." He was quiet. I could hear him moving around, the floorboards creaking under his feet. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I'll check it tomorrow, but you have to tell me what's going on." "I will, I promise, just not tonight." "When?" "Soon." Another long silence. "Are we going to be okay?" he asked, and his voice was so small it broke something in me. "I don't know," I whispered. "I really don't know." I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about what he'd said, about being dead and not knowing it, about time slipping and blurring and looping back on itself, about the person standing at the base of his tower. At 3 a.m., I gave up and made coffee, sat at the desk and pulled out every log I could find, spreading them across the surface, looking for patterns, clues, anything. June 1994, July 1994, August 1994. The handwriting changed in late July, got messier, more rushed. Garrett's entries became shorter, less detailed, like he was distracted or scared. July 28th, 1994, radio's getting worse. Can barely hear dispatch anymore, but I can hear someone else. A woman's voice. Sounds like she's calling from far away. Asked her who she was, but the static swallowed the answer. I stopped breathing. July 30th, 1994, heard her again tonight. Clearer this time. She said her name was Maya. Asked me what year it was. I told her 1994. She went quiet. I think she's in trouble, but I don't know how to help. The room tilted. I flipped forward, hands shaking. August 2nd, 1994. Maya keeps asking me questions about the tower, about the stove. She sounds scared. I don't understand what's happening. Dispatch can't hear me anymore, but I can still hear her. It's like we're the only two people left in the world. August 4th, 1994. Something's wrong with the propane line. I checked it like she asked. There's a crack in the seal. I tried to fix it, but I don't have the right tools. I can smell gas sometimes when the stove's on. I should radio it in, but dispatch doesn't answer anymore. Only Maya. August 7th, 1994. The smoke's getting worse. I think there's a fire coming. I can see it on the horizon at night, orange glow beyond a ridge. Maya says I need to leave, but I can't. The trail just brings me back. I'm stuck here. We both are. The next entry was in different handwriting, shakier, hurried. August 10th, 1994. Tower 7 went dark tonight. I pushed the logs away and stood up so fast the chair fell over. This couldn't be real. None of this could be real. I grabbed the radio. Garrett, are you there? Static. Tower 7, please respond. Nothing. Garrett. The static surged and then, I'm here. His voice, distant, like he was calling from the bottom of a well. Are you okay? I don't know, Maya. Something's happening. The air smells wrong, like burning metal, and I keep seeing... The transmission cut out. Seeing what? Garrett, what do you see? Fire, he whispered. I see fire, but it's not outside. It's inside, in the walls, in the floor. It's everywhere. Get out, right now. Leave the tower. I can't. Yes, you can. Just go down the stairs. There are no stairs. The radio went silent. I ran to the window, grabbed the binoculars, pointed them at Tower 7. The structure was dark, no lights, but as I watched, a glow began to spread from inside. Orange, flickering, fire. Garrett. No response. The fire grew brighter. I could see flames through the windows now, climbing the walls, spreading across the roof. Smoke poured from the gaps in the structure, thick and black. And then I heard it, screaming, not through the radio, through the air, across 4 miles of forest. A sound that should have been impossible to hear, but I heard it anyway, cutting through the night like a knife. His voice, calling my name. I dropped the binoculars and grabbed the radio. I'm here, I can hear you. Maya, static surge. It hurts. Fight it, get out, you have to... Can't breathe. Garrett. The transmission died. Through the window, I watched Tower 7 burn. The flames consumed it completely, turning the structure into a pillar of light against the darkness. I could feel the heat from here, impossible as that was. Could smell the smoke. I stood there watching until the fire burned itself out, until there was nothing left but a blackened skeleton on the ridge, until the sky started to lighten with dawn. And then, as the sun rose, I watched the tower rebuild itself. The charred wood straightened, the broken glass reformed. The structure pulled itself back together like a film running in reverse, until it stood whole and intact once more. The light inside flickered on, warm, yellow, like someone had just lit a lantern. The radio crackled. Prospect Point, you copy? Garrett's voice, calm, easy, like nothing had happened. Maya, you there? I couldn't sleep. Thought I'd check in. I picked up the receiver with shaking hands. What? What day is it? June 15th. Why? June 15th. We'd gone backward. The loop had reset. Maya, you okay? You sound weird. I looked out at Tower 7, at the light in the window, at the smoke rising gently from the roof. Yeah, I heard myself say. Yeah, I'm okay. You sure? No. God, no. Yeah, just tired. Well, get some sleep. I'll talk to you tomorrow. The line went dead. I sat down on the floor and stared at the radio and tried very hard not to scream. Chapter 5. The Smoke. I didn't tell him. For 3 days I talked to Garrett like everything was normal, like I hadn't watched him burn alive, like I hadn't heard him screaming my name across impossible distance. He didn't remember any of it. Each night he'd radio around the same time between 8 and 10, and we'd fall into our routine. Small talk, observations about the weather, stories about nothing. He was still in mid-June in his timeline, still talking about the black bear he'd seen, still making the same jokes. I started keeping notes, writing down everything he said, looking for variations, trying to figure out if the loop was exact or if things changed slightly each time through. Mostly it was the same, but not always. On the second night after the fire, he mentioned the radio acting up. Keeps cutting out mid-sentence. Happened 3 times today. He'd said that before, in the logs from July. Things were bleeding through, events from later in his summer pushing forward into June, like the loop was degrading or compressing. I didn't know which was worse. The smell started on the 4th day. I woke up to it. Smoke, sharp and acrid like burning plastic. I sat up fast, thinking the tower was on fire, but there was nothing, no flames, no heat, just the smell, thick enough to taste. I checked the stove, cold, checked outside for wildfire, clear skies, no smoke on any horizon, but I could still smell it. It followed me all day, in the cabin, on the catwalk. When I hiked down to refill my water from the creek, the loop let me go that far at least. The smell came with me, like it was in my nose or my lungs. By evening, I was shaking. I radioed Garrett early. Tower 7, you copy? Maya, yeah, I'm here. What's wrong? You sound... Do you smell smoke? A pause. What? Smoke. Do you smell it? Yeah, actually, I've been smelling it all day. Thought maybe there was a fire somewhere I couldn't see. Why? Do you smell it too? Yes. Where's it coming from? I looked out at his tower. The light was on, steady. I don't know, I lied. Should we report it? No, don't. Just ignore it. It's probably nothing. Maya, if there's a fire, there's no fire. Trust me. He went quiet. I could hear him breathing, uncertain. Okay, he said finally. If you say so. We talked for a while longer, but the conversation felt strained, like we were both pretending not to notice the smell, not to feel the wrongness pressing in from all sides. When he signed off, I sat in the dark and watched Tower 7 and waited for it to burn again. It didn't. Not that night. I started losing time, not in the way Garrett described, not forgetting chunks of the day. Worse, I'd be doing something, and then suddenly I'd be somewhere else, doing something different, with no memory of the transition. I'd be making coffee, and then I'd blink and be standing on the catwalk with the mug already empty and cold in my hand. I'd be writing in the log, and then I'd look up and it would be dark outside, hours gone. Once I came to sitting on the floor in the corner of the cabin, knees pulled to my chest, humming a song I didn't recognize. I had no idea how long I'd been there. My hands were shaking all the time now. I couldn't eat more than a few bites of anything. Sleep came in, fragments, 20 minutes here, an hour there, full of dreams where I was running through the forest, trying to reach Tower 7, but the trees kept multiplying, closing in until I couldn't move at all. I knew what was happening. I was becoming like him. stuck in my own loop. The tower was doing to me what it had done to Garrett, pulling me in, making me forget, making the boundaries between real and not real blur until there was no difference anymore. I had to fight it, but I didn't know how. On the 7th day, the phone rang, not the radio, the landline. The ancient rotary phone mounted on the wall that Carl had told me didn't work, hadn't worked in years, was just there because no one had bothered to remove it. It rang at 2:47 a.m. I stared at it in the dark, my heart slamming against my ribs. It rang again, and again. On the 4th ring, I got up and crossed the cabin. Stood in front of it. The ringer was loud, mechanical, cutting through the silence like something breaking. I picked up the receiver. Hello? Silence. No, not silence. Breathing, shallow and ragged, like someone trying very hard to stay quiet. Who is this? The breathing continued. In, out, and then under it I heard something else, a voice, distant, whispering. Help me. Garrett? Can't get out. Where are you? Tower. I know, but which? The line went dead. I stood there holding the receiver, listening to the dial tone, and then I slammed it back onto the cradle. My reflection stared back at me from the dark window. I looked like shit. Hollow eyes, skin too pale, hair I hadn't washed in days. I looked like someone who was disappearing. The next time I talked to Garrett, I asked him about the girl. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed to tell someone, and he was the only person who would understand. Or maybe because I was losing my mind and didn't care anymore about keeping secrets. We'd been talking about nothing. About a family of ravens that had been harassing him, dive-bombing his tower every morning, and I just said it. I used to be an EMT. He paused mid-sentence. Yeah? Yeah, for about 3 years, in Portland. What made you stop? I looked out at the forest. The trees were perfectly still, no wind, like they were listening. There was a call. Car accident. Girl, maybe 19. Her car had gone off the road and hit a tree. Passenger side. She was pinned. We couldn't get her out right away. Had to wait for the fire department to bring the jaws of life. That sounds rough. It was, but that's not why I quit. I stopped, swallowed. She was conscious the whole time, talking to me, asking if she was going to be okay. I kept telling her yes, kept saying help was coming. We were going to get her out. She just needed to hold on. Maya. But I knew I could see the blood, where it was coming from, how much. I knew she wasn't going to make it. And when the fire department finally got there and we pulled her free, she looked at me, right in my eyes. And she knew I'd been lying. My voice cracked. She died in the ambulance 40 seconds from the hospital, and the whole time all I could think was that I'd frozen. When we first got there, when I first saw how bad it was, I froze for maybe 5 seconds. And maybe if I'd moved faster, radioed for the jaws sooner, done something differently, it wouldn't have mattered, Garrett said quietly. You know that, right? I don't know that. I don't know anything, except that she's dead and I'm here and I ran away 'cause I couldn't face it. Silence, long and heavy. Is that why you took this job? He asked. Yeah. Did it help? I laughed. It came out bitter. What do you think? I think, he said slowly, that you're punishing yourself. And I think this place knows that, feeds on it. I went still. What do you mean? I mean, I've been thinking about what you said, about watching the stove, about something bad happening. And I've been trying to figure out why you'd say that. Garrett, you know something, don't you? About me, about this place. I didn't answer. Maya, tell me. I can't. Why not? Because you'll think I'm crazy. I already think you're crazy, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. We both are. We're talking over a radio that shouldn't work, in towers that trap us, in a forest that won't let us leave. Crazy's the baseline here. I closed my eyes. You're going to die, I whispered. In August, there's going to be a fire in your tower. You're going to die, and I'm going to watch it happen, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. The static between us felt infinite. How do you know that? He asked finally. Because I found the logs from 1994, from after. They said you died, that the tower burned, and they never found your body. That's impossible. Is it? You said yourself that time's been weird, that things don't make sense. Garrett, what year do you think it is? He stopped. It's 1994. It's 2024. That's not. I'm 30 years in your future, or you're 30 years in my past, or we're both stuck in something that doesn't care about linear time. I don't know. But I watched you die 4 days ago. I heard you screaming, and then the tower reset, and you were back, and you didn't remember any of it. He didn't say anything for a long time. I could hear him breathing fast and shallow like he was trying not to panic. If that's true, he said finally, then we're both already dead, aren't we? The question hung in the air between us. I looked out at Tower 7. The light was on, steady and warm. I don't know, I said, and I realized, with a cold certainty that settled in my bones, that I really didn't. Chapter 6. The Girl She Couldn't Save. The next morning I found blood on my pillowcase. Not a lot. Just a rust-colored smear where my face had been. I touched my nose. Dry. Checked my mouth. Nothing. Ran my tongue over my teeth looking for a cut. The blood wasn't mine. I stripped the pillowcase off and shoved it in a garbage bag. Tried not to think about where it had come from. Tried not to think about the hours I couldn't remember. The time that kept disappearing like water through my fingers. I made coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Outside, the forest was perfectly still. No birds, no wind. Just silence pressing against the windows like something waiting. Garrett didn't radio that night, or the next. I tried reaching him. Called Tower 7 a dozen times, my voice getting more desperate with each attempt. Nothing but static. The empty channel hiss that sounded like the world ending. On the third night, I gave up and just sat by the radio staring at it, willing it to crackle, willing his voice to come through. It didn't. I was alone, really alone, for the first time since I'd arrived, and I realized how much I'd been using our conversations, to keep myself tethered, to remember that I was real, that this was real. Without him, the edges started to blur. I'd be standing at the window, and suddenly I couldn't remember if I'd been there for 5 minutes or 5 hours. I'd look down and find words carved into the desk that I didn't remember writing. Random things, fragments. She's still in the car? Count backwards from 10. It smells like copper. My handwriting, but I didn't remember doing it. The smell of smoke got stronger, followed me everywhere now, thick and cloying. I'd wake up gagging on it, convinced the tower was burning, but there was never any fire, just the smell. And a girl. I started seeing her in my peripheral vision just for a second. A flash of dark hair, a pale face pressed against the window, the shape of someone sitting in the corner where no one should be. When I turned to look, nothing, but I could feel her watching, waiting. On the 5th night without Garrett, I broke. I don't know what time it was, late. The kind of late where time stops meaning anything and you're just floating in dark. I was lying on the cot, not sleeping, just staring at the ceiling, when I heard it. A voice. Why did you stop? I sat up so fast my vision went spotty. The cabin was empty. Hello? You stopped breathing for me? The voice was coming from everywhere and nowhere. Young, female, familiar in a way that made my chest tight. Who's there? You know who I am. I did. God help me, I did. You're not real, I whispered. Neither are you, not anymore. I stood up, scanning the cabin. The corners were too dark. The shadows moved wrong. I tried to save you. No, you didn't. The words hit like a physical blow. I did. You froze. You stood there and you froze. And you let me die because you were scared. That's not... And then you ran away because that's what you do. You run. I was shaking so hard I had to lean against the desk. I'm sorry, I said, and my voice came out broken. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to... I couldn't. You could have. You just didn't. And then she was there, standing in the corner where the light didn't reach. I could see her outline, dark hair falling across her face, the shape of her wrong somehow, bent at angles that bodies shouldn't bend. I'm not ready to forgive you yet, she said quietly. I know, but I need you to stop running. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just have to look. Look at what? She tilted her head. The movement was too smooth, inhuman. At what you really did, not the story you tell yourself, the truth. And then she was gone, just dark and silence and the smell of smoke. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor and cried for the first time since the accident. Real crying, not the quiet leaking I'd done in the shower or the choked-back sobs I'd swallowed alone in my apartment. This was ugly, messy, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and broken. I cried until I couldn't breathe, until my throat was raw, until the sun came up and painted the cabin gold. And when I finally stopped, when the tears dried and left salt tracks on my face, I felt lighter, not fixed, not forgiven, but lighter, like something had loosened its grip. Garrett radioed that morning at 8:43. I was so relieved to hear his voice I almost dropped the receiver. Where have you been? What do you mean? I radioed last night. No, you didn't. I haven't heard from you in 5 days. Silence. Maya, I talked to you last night. We talked about the girl, the EMT call. Don't you remember? I went cold. That was 6 days ago. No, it was last night. I'm sure of it. Garrett, what's the date? A pause. I could hear him moving, papers rustling. It's June 28th. It's July 3rd. That's not... He stopped. Hold on. More rustling. A long silence. The log says June 28th, he said slowly. But there's other dates written in the margins. In my handwriting, July 1st, July 15th, August 3rd. I don't remember writing these. The loop's accelerating, I said. We're not going through it linearly anymore. We're jumping. Jumping where? To the bad parts, the things we can't face. He was quiet for a long time. Maya, what did you do? After the girl died? I looked out at the forest. The trees were moving now, swaying in wind I couldn't feel. I went back to the station, I said quietly. Wrote the report, went home, took a shower, couldn't get the blood out from under my nails. I scrubbed until my hands bled, but I could still smell her, still see her face. And then I called in sick the next day, and the next, and then I just stopped going. My supervisor called, left messages I didn't answer. My partner, his name was Derek. He came to my apartment, knocked for 20 minutes. I sat on the other side of the door and waited for him to leave. Did he? Eventually. The wind was getting stronger. I could hear it now, pushing against the tower, making the whole structure groan. I stopped answering my phone, stopped leaving my apartment, lived on cereal and takeout for 3 months. My mom came once. I pretended I wasn't home. She left groceries outside my door. I waited until she was gone to bring them in. You were grieving? I was hiding. There's a difference. Is there? I thought about that. I don't know anymore. Outside the sky was darkening, not with clouds, with something else. Something that pressed down, heavy and wrong. What happened to the girl's family? Garrett asked. Did they ever contact you? Her mom called me 2 weeks after, got my number from somewhere, asked if her daughter suffered, if she was scared. What did you tell her? My throat was so tight I could barely get the words out. I lied, said she wasn't in pain, said she went peacefully, said she wasn't scared. Was she? Terrified. I could see it in her eyes. She knew she was dying and she was terrified. And I held her hand and lied to her face and told her everything was going to be okay. The words hung between us. That was a kindness? Garrett said softly. Lying to her? It was a coward's choice. It was both. Things can be both. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass of the window. Her name was Emma Pritchard, 20 years old, studying biology at Portland State. She was going to be a marine biologist. Save the oceans. That's what her mom told me. She wanted to save the fucking oceans, and she died because some drunk asshole ran a stop sign and I wasn't fast enough. You didn't kill her, Maya. I didn't save her either. You can't save everyone. I should have saved her. The wind screamed. The tower shook, and somewhere in the distance I heard it, screaming. The same sound I'd heard the night Tower 7 burned. Garrett's voice, calling across impossible distance. But this time it was different. This time it was two voices, his and mine. Maya, Garrett said, his voice tight with fear. What's happening? I looked out at Tower 7. It was burning again. Flames climbing the walls, eating through the wood, turning the windows into mouths of light. But this time, my tower was burning too. I spun around. Fire was spreading across the floor, crawling up the walls, moving wrong, like it was alive. The smoke was black and thick, and I could feel the heat, feel it searing my lungs. Garrett, I see it. I see the fire. Maya, you need to get out. There's no way out. I ran to the door, grabbed the handle. It was locked. No, not locked. Gone. Just smooth wood where the handle should have been. I pounded on it, screaming. The windows. I turned to the windows. They were gone too. Just walls. Solid walls on all sides. The fire was everywhere now, eating the oxygen. The smoke so thick I couldn't see. I dropped to the floor, crawling, trying to find air. Maya! Garrett's voice through the radio, desperate. I crawled toward it, reached up, grabbed the receiver. I'm here, I choked out. I'm here. And then I felt it, Hands, cold hands on my shoulders, pulling me back. I twisted around. Emma was there, kneeling beside me in the smoke and fire, her face pale, her eyes dark and depthless. "It's not real," she said. "What?" "The fire. It's not real. You're doing this to yourself." "I don't understand. You're stuck in the moment, the one where you froze. You keep going back to it, reliving it, making it worse because you think you deserve it." The flames roared around us, but they weren't touching her, weren't touching me. "I can't get out," I whispered. "Yes, you can. You just have to stop punishing yourself." "I don't know how." She reached out, put her hand on my chest, right over my heart. "Count backward from 10, she said. "What?" "Like I taught you. Remember, in the ambulance, when I couldn't breathe, you told me to count backward from 10. I did remember. God, I remembered, trying to keep her conscious, keep her focused on something, anything, other than the pain. 10, Emma said. 9, I whispered. 8, 7, 6. The fire was fading, not going out, just becoming less real, like I was seeing through it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I opened my eyes. I was lying on the floor of the cabin. No fire, no smoke, just the quiet dark and the smell of old wood. The radio crackled. "Maya? Maya, are you there?" I grabbed the receiver. "I'm here." "What happened? You cut out. I thought..." I'm okay. "You sure?" I looked around the cabin. Everything was normal. The door was there. The windows were there. No fire. "Yeah," I said. I think I just needed to face something." "Did you?" I thought about Emma's hands, the coldness of them, the weight. Getting there. Chapter 7. The map doesn't match. I slept for 12 hours straight after that. No dreams, no voices, just deep, black nothing that felt like mercy. When I woke, the sun was high and the cabin was warm, and for a moment, just a moment, I forgot where I was. Forgot about the towers and the loops and the fire that wasn't real, but also was. Then I sat up and saw the radio, and it all came back. I made coffee, ate half a can of peaches, standing at the counter. My hands were steady for the first time in days. Something had shifted. I didn't feel better, exactly, but I felt clearer, like a fog had lifted just enough to see a few feet ahead. Emma's words kept circling back. "You're stuck in the moment, the one where you froze." Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been so busy punishing myself, replaying that failure over and over, that I'd trapped myself here, made myself a prisoner of my own guilt. But if that was true, then Garrett, I needed to see his tower up close, needed to prove to myself that it was real, that he was real, that this wasn't all just my mind eating itself alive. I grabbed the topographical map and spread it on the desk. Prospect Point, my location, was marked in red. Tower 7 was northeast, roughly 4 miles. The terrain between looked manageable. A gradual descent into a valley, then a climb up the opposite ridge, maybe 3 hours round trip if I pushed it. I'd tried this before, 3 times. Each time the forest had looped me back. But I felt different now, lighter, less tangled up in my own head. Maybe that would be enough. I left at 10 a.m., when the sun was high enough to keep the shadows manageable. The trail down from my tower was overgrown, but visible. I followed it northeast, checking my compass every few minutes. The forest was quiet. Too quiet, still no birds, but it didn't feel hostile, just watchful. After 20 minutes, I reached the valley floor. A creek ran through it, shallow and clear. I refilled my water bottle, took a long drink. The cold shocked my system awake. Across the creek, the trail continued up the opposite slope. I could see Tower 7 now, a dark shape against the sky, closer than it had ever looked through binoculars. I started climbing. The terrain was steep, but not impossible. My legs burned. Sweat soaked through my shirt. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, not thinking about what might happen when I reached the top. 30 minutes in, I checked the compass. Still northeast. Good. I kept going. 45 minutes. The trees started to thin. I could see more sky now, feel more wind. I was close. An hour. The ridge leveled out. Through the trees ahead, I could see nothing. I stopped. The ridge was empty. No tower, no structure, not even a foundation or burned scar, just rock and scrub grass and wind. I pulled out the map, double-checked the coordinates. This was the right place. I was sure of it. But there was nothing here. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the landscape. And there, 4 miles southwest, perched on the ridge I'd just left, was Tower 7. I stared at it, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. That was impossible. Tower 7 was supposed to be here. I was standing where it should be, but through the trees I could see it clearly on the opposite ridge, right next to my tower. They were standing side by side now, 2 identical structures, maybe 100 yards apart. My stomach dropped. I pulled out the compass. The needle spun lazily, refusing to settle. I looked at the map again. Found Prospect Point. Traced my finger to where I was standing. According to the map, this ridge didn't exist. I was standing on terrain that shouldn't be here, looking at towers that were in the wrong place, holding a compass that didn't work. The forest had changed the rules, or maybe it had always been this way, and I was only just now seeing it. I tried to hike back. The trail was gone, not overgrown, gone. Where there had been a clear path down into the valley, there was now just dense forest, old growth, trees so thick I couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. I walked anyway, picked a direction, and pushed through underbrush and deadfall, branches clawing at my clothes. After an hour, I found myself back on the empty ridge. I tried again. Different direction this time. Same result. Again. By the 5th attempt, my clothes were torn and my hands were bleeding from thorns, and I was trying very hard not to scream. I sat down on a rock and put my head in my hands. The towers were still visible through the trees, side by side. Watching, I was trapped here, on this ridge that shouldn't exist, looking at a landscape that didn't match the map. The forest wasn't just looping anymore. It was changing. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to start dropping toward the horizon. Long enough for the shadows to grow long and strange. Eventually, I stood up. If I couldn't go back, I'd try going forward. I walked toward the towers. The forest opened up. Not naturally, it was too deliberate, too neat. Like something had pushed the trees aside to make a path. I followed it. The towers grew closer. I could make out details now. The metal stilts, the wooden siding, the windows catching the late sun. 2 towers, identical in every way, except one had smoke rising from the roof, and one didn't. I approached the one without smoke first, the one I hoped, was mine. The stairs were familiar. The 3rd step creaked in the same place. The railing was worn smooth in the same spot where I always gripped it. I climbed. At the top, I pushed open the door. The cabin was empty. Not empty like I'd left it. Empty like no one had ever been there. No cot, no desk, no stove, just bare walls and floor and the smell of old wood. My supplies were gone, my sleep bag, my books, everything. I backed out onto the catwalk, my heart hammering. Turned to look at the other tower. It was maybe 100 yards away, close enough that I could see movement through the windows, a shadow passing back and forth. Someone was inside. I climbed down and crossed the distance between the towers. The ground felt unstable, like walking on something that was only pretending to be solid. The second tower's stairs looked the same as the first. I climbed slowly, my legs shaking. At the top, I could see through the window. The cabin was furnished, exactly like mine had been. Cot in the corner, desk beneath the window, stove against the wall, and someone was sitting at the desk, writing in a log. I couldn't see their face. Their back was to me, but something about the posture, the shape of them made my chest tight. I knocked on the door. The figure went still. Slowly they turned. It was me. I was staring at myself through the glass. Same clothes, same wild hair, same hollow-eyed expression. The me inside tilted her head, studying me like I was an interesting specimen. Then she smiled. It wasn't my smile. It was wrong, too wide, too many teeth. She stood, crossed to the door, opened it. "You shouldn't be here," she said, and her voice was mine but flatter, emptier. "What are you?" "I'm what happens when you stop fighting, when you give in." I took a step back. She took a step forward. "This place needs something to fill it," she continued. "Needs someone to stay. Garrett's been here alone too long. He's getting thin, worn out. The loop can't sustain on just him anymore. I'm not staying. You already are. Look." She pointed past me. I turned. The forest had closed in. Trees pressed against the tower now, so thick I couldn't see between them. No path, no way out. "It's easier if you stop resisting," the other me said. "The fear goes away, the guilt. Everything just smooths out. You forget why you were running in the first place. No, you'll give in eventually. They all do." "All?" Her smile widened. "You think you're the first? That Garrett's the only one?" She gestured to the forest, and now that she'd pointed it out, I could see them. Shapes between the trees, dozens of them, hundreds, standing still, watching, towers, stretching out in every direction, disappearing into the dark. Each one identical, each one occupied. "How many?" I whispered. "Does it matter? You're here now. That's what counts." She reached for me. I stumbled backward, lost my footing, fell, and hit the floor of my own cabin. I gasped, scrambling upright. I was back, the desk, the cot, the stove, everything where it should be. Through the window, Tower 7 sat on its ridge, 4 miles away, alone. The radio crackled. "Maya, you there? I've been calling for hours." I grabbed the receiver, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. "I'm here." "Where did you go? I lost you for..." It felt like days. "I tried to reach your tower." And I looked out at the forest, at the spaces between the trees where other towers might be hiding, or might not be. I couldn't tell any more what was real and what was the place showing me what it wanted me to see. "The map doesn't match," I said quietly. "Nothing matches. Garrett, I think we're not just stuck in a loop. I think we're stuck in something bigger, something that's been here a long time, collecting people, Silence. That's not possible, he said, but his voice was small. I saw myself. Another version of me. She said I was going to give in, eventually, that everyone does. Maya, how long have you really been here? He didn't answer. Garrett, how long? I don't know, he whispered. I thought it was 3 summers, but sometimes I remember more. Other faces, other voices, people I talked to before you, or maybe after. I can't. Time doesn't work right here. You know that. Have you ever tried to leave? Really tried? Every day, every single day, the trail always brings me back. What if we tried together at the same time? How would that work? I don't know. But maybe if we both go in the same direction, both push at the same time, we could... What? Break through? Escape? It sounded stupid, even as I said it. It's worth trying, Garrett said. What have we got to lose? Everything, I thought. We've got everything to lose. But I said, tomorrow, dawn, we both head south, toward the access road. We keep the radio on. We talk the whole way. Don't let each other loop. Okay. Maya? Yeah? If this doesn't work, if we don't make it out, I'm glad I got to know you. My throat went tight. Me too. The static rose between us, soft, almost gentle. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be hard, he signed off. I sat at the desk and stared out at Tower 7 and wondered if he was looking back. Wondered if we were both already ghosts and just didn't know it yet. Chapter 8. Dispatch goes silent. I didn't sleep. I tried. Lay on the cot watching the ceiling beams, listening to the tower creak in a wind. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, the other me, that wrong smile. You'll give in eventually. At 4:30 a.m., I gave up and made coffee. The dawn came slow and gray. No sunrise, just a gradual lightening of the dark. The forest emerged from shadow like something surfacing from deep water. I packed light, water bottle, compass, map, knife. The radio clipped to my belt. At 5:47, I radioed Garrett. You ready? As I'll ever be. Remember, we head south, toward the access road. We don't stop unless we have to, and we keep talking. Got it. I took a breath, let it out slowly. Okay, I'm starting down now. I opened the door and stepped out onto the catwalk. The air was cold and damp. Mist hung in the valleys below, thick enough to hide the ground. I started down the stairs. 1 step, 2, 3. The 4th one creaked like always. At the bottom, I looked back up at the tower, my tower. It looked smaller from down here, fragile. I'm on the ground, I said into the radio. You? Yeah, just hit the trail, it's here. Looks normal. Same, heading south now. I checked the compass. South was clear. I started walking. The trail was exactly where it should be, narrow but visible. I followed it down slope, into the mist. Still good? Garrett's voice crackled through. Yeah, you? Trail's holding, haven't looped yet. How far have you gone? Maybe a 1/4 mile. I checked my own progress. About the same. The mist was thicker down here. It moved wrong, not drifting with wind, but flowing, like it had current. I pushed through it, keeping my eyes on the trail. Talk to me, I said. Tell me something, anything. Like what? I don't know, something real, something from before. A pause, static. I had a dog, he said finally. When I was a kid, golden retriever named Murphy, dumbest dog you ever met, ate everything, socks, shoes, TV remotes. My dad used to joke that Murphy had a stomach made of concrete. What happened to him? Old age, 15 years. I was in college when he died. Came home for the funeral. Yeah, my parents held a funeral for the dog. We buried him in the backyard under the oak tree. That's sweet. It was ridiculous, but also, yeah, sweet. I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like I'd forgotten how. I had a cat, I offered. Louise, she was a calico. Mean as hell. Hated everyone except me. Used to sleep on my face, literally on my face. I'd wake up suffocating. Where is she now? My mom's taking care of her. I told her it was just for the summer, but I don't know if I'm going back. The words hung there, true in a way I hadn't wanted to admit. We'll get out, Garrett said. We'll both get out. You don't know that. No, but I'm choosing to believe it anyway. You should too. The trail curved around a stand of cedar. I followed it, checking the compass again. Still south, still good. How far now? I asked. Maybe a mile, maybe more. Hard to tell in this mist. I'd gone about the same, farther than I'd ever made it before. Hope flickered in my chest. Dangerous, fragile hope. Keep going, I said. We're doing it. Yeah, we are. At the hour mark, I stopped to drink water. The trail was still there, still heading south. The forest around me looked normal, real, old-growth fir and cedar, ferns carpeting the ground, the smell of damp earth and rot. No loops, no impossible geography, just forest. Status, I radioed. Static. Garrett? More static. Then, here, sorry, you cut out for a second. I asked for status. Still on trail, maybe 2 miles out now, you? Same. I think we're actually doing this. Don't say it, I thought. Don't jinx it. But I felt it too. The same cautious elation. Don't stop, I said. Not until we hit the road. Not planning on it. I kept walking. The mist started to thin. I could see farther now, 20 feet, 30. The trees were spaced wider apart. Sunlight filtered through in patches. My radio crackled. Not Garrett. A different voice. Female, flat and professional. Prospect Point, this is dispatch. You copy. I stopped. Dispatch, this is Prospect Point. I copy. We've been trying to reach you for 3 days. Where have you been? 3 days. I'd checked in. When? I couldn't remember. I'm here. Everything's fine. You need to return to your tower immediately. There's a red flag warning in effect. Lightning predicted for this afternoon. I can't. I'm hiking out. Negative. Prospect Point. You're not authorized to leave your post. Return to tower and await further instruction. I'm not going back. Maya, this is not optional. Return to your tower now. The use of my name made my skin crawl. Carla had never used my name before. No. Silence. Long enough that I thought she'd given up. Then, if you continue south, you will die. My blood went cold. What did you say? The access road is washed out, flooding from the storm last week. If you try to cross the creek at the bottom of the valley, you will slip and you will drown, and no one will find your body for 3 weeks. There was no storm last week? Yes, there was. You logged it yourself. Check your records. I tried to remember. Had there been a storm? I couldn't. Return to your tower, Maya. It's the only safe place. You know that. You're not real. You're confused, dehydrated. The isolation affects cognition. Come back and rest. Everything will be clearer after you rest. I looked at the radio clipped to my belt, at the speaker where the voice was coming from. Garrett, I said. "Can you hear this?" Static. "Garrett." "I'm here. Maya. Dispatch just radioed me too. They're saying—" "I know what they're saying. Don't listen." "But what if they're right? What if the road is washed out?" "It's not. They're lying." "How do you know?" "Because the voice wasn't Carla's. Not really. It sounded like her, had the same flat affect, but underneath it was something else. Something that wanted us to turn back. Trust me," I said. "Keep going." Silence. Then, "Okay, I trust you." The dispatch voice crackled again. "Final warning, Prospect Point. Turn back or face termination of employment and legal action for abandonment of post." "Go fuck yourself," I said, and unclipped the radio. I turned the volume all the way down. Not off. I needed to be able to hear Garrett, but low enough that dispatch couldn't reach me. I kept walking. The forest changed at 2-hour mark. Nothing dramatic, just subtle shifts. The trees got younger, the undergrowth denser, the trail narrower. I checked the compass. Still south. I checked the map. According to the map, I should be close to the creek crossing, the last major landmark before the access road. I pushed forward. The ground started sloping down more steeply. I could hear water now, running fast and loud. The creek. I scrambled down the slope, grabbing branches for balance. At the bottom, the creek was exactly where it should be, maybe 15 feet across, running high from snowmelt, but not impassable. A fallen log bridged most of the distance, perfectly normal, nothing washed out. Dispatch had lied. I keyed the radio. "Garrett, I'm at the creek. It's fine. Not washed out. They were lying." Static. "Garrett?" Nothing. I turned the volume up all the way. Just white noise. "Tower 7, did you copy?" Empty channel. "Garrett, if you can hear me, I'm crossing the creek now. I'll wait for you on the other side." I clipped the radio back to my belt and approached the log. It was slick with moss, but stable. I inched across, arms out for balance. The water rushed below, loud enough to drown out thought. Halfway across, my foot slipped. I windmilled, caught myself, kept going. 3/4, almost there. I jumped the last few feet and landed hard on the opposite bank. Safe. I turned to look back at the way I'd come. The forest on the other side of the creek was dark. Wrong. Like looking at a photograph where someone had erased all the details, leaving just vague shapes and shadows. I couldn't see the trail anymore. Shit. I looked ahead. The forest on this side was clear, real. The trail continued up the slope toward the access road. I could see it through the trees. A dirt road, rutted and overgrown, but definitely a road. I'd made it. I started running. Up the slope, lungs burning, legs screaming, branches whipped my face. I didn't care. The road got closer. 20 feet, 10, 5. I burst out of the tree line and stumbled onto the road and just stood there, gasping, laughing, crying. I'd made it. I'd actually made it out. I pulled out the radio. Garrett, I'm out. I'm on the access road. You need to..." The radio crackled, but it wasn't Garrett's voice. "Prospect Point. Return to your tower." I spun around. The forest behind me was gone. Not dark, not erased, gone. Just empty white space, like someone had cut the world away and left nothing. And in the middle of that, nothing, my tower, standing on its ridge, 4 miles away, exactly where it had always been. I looked down at my feet. I was standing on the catwalk, 40 feet in the air. I looked at my hands, at the railing I was gripping. When had I grabbed the railing? The door behind me was open, the cabin light spilling out warm and yellow. No, I whispered. No, I was out. I made it out. You never left, the radio said, and now it wasn't Dispatch's voice. It was mine. You've been here the whole time, standing on the catwalk, talking to yourself. I looked at the radio in my hand. The power was off. It had been off the entire time. No, Garrett. I talked to Garrett. He's real. Is he? I turned. The other me was standing in the doorway, smiling that wrong smile. You're doing this, I said. You're making me see this. I'm not doing anything. You're doing it to yourself. I was out. I was on the road. You wanted to be on the road, so you saw the road, but you never left. You'll never leave. Garrett got out. Garrett burned 30 years ago. You're the only one here. You've always been the only one here. That's not. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Had I really talked to him? Or had I been talking to the radio static, hearing what I wanted to hear? Had any of it been real? Come inside, the other me said gently. It's cold. Out here, come inside and rest. Everything's easier when you stop fighting. She held out her hand. I looked at it, looked at the forest stretching in every direction, looked at Tower 7 on its ridge, and I made a choice. I turned and climbed over the railing. Maya! I jumped. Chapter 9. The Fire That Isn't. I didn't die. I should have. 40 feet is enough. More than enough. But I didn't hit the ground. I hit water. Cold. Shocking. Deep enough to swallow me whole. I thrashed, disoriented, lungs screaming. Which way was up? The water was black, thick, wrong, not like creek water, like something else. My hand found something solid. I grabbed it, pulled myself toward what I hoped was surface. Broke through, gasping. I was in the creek, the one I'd crossed, or thought I'd crossed. But it was different now, wider, deeper. The current stronger. I struggled toward the bank, my clothes dragging me down. My fingers found mud, roots. I hauled myself out and collapsed on solid ground, coughing up water that tasted like rust and smoke. For a long time, I just lay there, shaking, breathing, alive. When I finally sat up, everything hurt. I was at the base of my tower. The stairs stretched above me, impossibly tall. No creek, no forest, just the tower and me and the approaching dark. I'd looped back. Of course I had, but something felt different. Lighter, maybe, like jumping had broken something or proven something. I chose to fall instead of staying. That had to mean something. I dragged myself upright and climbed the stairs, each step an effort. My legs kept threatening to give out. At the top, I pushed open the door. The cabin was exactly as I'd left it. Desk, cot, stove, radio sitting silent on the desk, no other version of me waiting inside, just me. I stripped off my wet clothes and wrapped myself in the sleeping bag. My whole body shook with cold, with exhaustion, with something I didn't have a name for. The radio crackled. Maya, Jesus Christ, are you okay? I've been calling for hours. Garrett's voice, real, solid, angry with worry. I grabbed the receiver. I'm here. What happened? You went silent. I thought, fuck, I thought you'd... I tried to leave, got to the access road, or thought I did. The tower pulled me back. Did you try the creek crossing? Yeah. Me too. Got about 2 miles before the trail just ended, not looped, ended, like someone had cut the world off. I turned around, and I was back at my tower. We can't leave, Maya. Not that way. I closed my eyes. The sleeping bag was warming up, but I still felt cold all the way through. I know. So what do we do? I didn't have an answer. We sat in silence, the static between us the only sound. "There has to be another way," he said finally. "If we can't leave physically, then maybe what? I don't know, but we're missing something, some piece of this." He was right. We were stuck in a pattern, and patterns had rules. We just needed to figure out what they were. "Tell me about the fire," I said. "The one that killed you? Do you remember any details about that day?" Silence. "Maya, I need to know. If we're going to break this, I need to understand what happened." A long pause. I could hear him breathing. "I don't remember a fire," he said quietly. "I remember smoke, the smell of it, getting stronger every day. And I remember feeling trapped, like something was coming and I couldn't get away from it. But I don't remember flames. I don't remember burning." "What's the last thing you do remember, clearly?" "Talking to you last night. Or, no, that was tonight. Times, it's all jumbled. Think further back. Before me. Before this summer." Silence stretched so long I thought I'd lost him. "I remember the bookstore," he said finally. "Smith family, on Willamette. I remember organizing the mystery section. Someone had messed it up, put everything out of order. I spent a whole shift fixing it. That's the last clear memory I have. Everything after is fog." "What year?" 1994, March maybe, early spring. And then I'm here, in the tower, like someone edited out everything in between." I pulled the sleeping bag tighter. "What if you never made it to the tower?" I said slowly. "What if something happened before you got here? And all of this, is something else, something that happened after." "After I died, you mean?" "Yeah." He was quiet for a long time. "Then what are you?" he asked. "If I'm dead, if I've been dead for 30 years, why can you talk to me? Why are you here?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm dead too. Maybe I didn't survive the drive up here. Maybe I crashed, and this is all just my brain firing in those last seconds, making sense of—" "Don't. Don't what?" "Don't go down that road. We're not dead. We can't be. This is real. You're real. How do you know?" "Because I can feel this. The fear, the loneliness, the hope that maybe we can figure this out. Dead people don't feel hope, Maya." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. "Okay," I said. "Okay, then we're alive, and we're stuck, and there has to be a reason." "A reason?" "This place, it's not random. It chose us. Specifically, it's feeding on something. Our guilt, our fear, I don't know. Whatever it is, that's what's keeping us here. So we stopped feeding it." "How?" Neither of us had an answer. I fell asleep sitting at the desk, the radio still on, Garrett's breathing the only sound in the dark. I dreamed of towers, hundreds of them, thousands, stretching across a landscape that went on forever, each one occupied by someone trapped, someone running, someone who couldn't face what they'd left behind. In the dream, I could see into them, could see the people inside. A man who'd killed someone in a drunk driving accident and never turned himself in. A woman who'd abandoned her children and told herself they were better off. A teenager who'd watched his best friend overdose and did nothing. Each one replaying their moment, their failure, over and over, trapped in the loop of their own guilt. And above them all, something vast and patient, something that fed on that guilt, that needed it, something that would never let them go. I woke with my heart racing. It was still dark, the middle of the night. The radio was quiet. Garrett must have fallen asleep too. I got up and went to the window. Tower 7 was burning. No, not burning. About to burn. I could see it in the way the light inside flickered, in the smoke that was just starting to curl from gaps in the structure, in the way the whole thing seemed to shimmer, like reality was wearing thin there. I grabbed the radio. "Garrett! Garrett, wake up!" Static. "Garrett!" "What? Maya? What's wrong?" "Look outside. Tell me what you see." Sounds of movement. A pause. "Nothing. Just dark. Why?" "I can see your tower. It's starting to burn." "That's impossible. I don't see any. Wait." Silence. "I smell it. Smoke. Stronger than before." "Get out. Right now." "Maya, there's no fire. I'm looking around the cabin. Everything's fine." "It's coming. Trust me. You need to leave." "And go where? You said yourself we can't." "I don't care. Out of the tower, down to the ground. Just get out of the structure." Okay, I'm going." I pressed my face against the window, watching Tower 7. The light inside was brighter now, orange instead of yellow. "I'm on the catwalk." Garrett's voice came through, breathless. "Still no fire. Are you sure you're seeing—" The tower exploded into flames, not gradually, all at once, like someone had thrown a switch. "Garrett!" Screaming, through the radio and across the distance, his voice breaking with pain. "Get down the stairs, now!" "Can't. Stairs are—" Static surge. "So hot. Can't breathe." "Fight it. Climb down. The railing." "Maya." The transmission cut out. Through the binoculars, I watched the tower burn, watched the structure collapse in on itself, watched it fold and crumble and disappear into ash. And then, nothing. No tower. No light. Just empty ridge and darkness and silence. I stood there, the radio dead in my hand, and something inside me broke. Not like before. Not the soft giving way of depression or the quiet fracture of guilt. This was rage, pure, clean, directed. "No." I threw the radio. It hit the wall and shattered. "No, not again." I grabbed the chair, threw it. It splintered against the desk. "You don't get to keep doing this." The lantern smashed against the floor, oil spreading. He was real. He was real, and you took him. I was screaming now, screaming at the tower, at the forest, at whatever vast and patient thing was out there feeding on us. Give him back. My hands found the stove, the propane tank beneath it. I knew what I was doing was insane. I knew it was probably exactly what it wanted. I didn't care. I opened the valve, heard the hiss of gas escaping, grabbed matches from the drawer. "If you want me trapped," I said to the empty cabin, "if you want me to burn like him, to loop like him, to live this over and over," I struck a match. "You're going to have to catch me first." I dropped it. The explosion threw me backward. Not heat, not at first, just force. The windows blowing out, the walls peeling away, the floor buckling. I was flying, or falling, both. The world tilted and spun and came apart, and then I was standing in the forest, not falling, not burning, just standing, in a place between the trees where no place should be. The towers were gone. Mine, Garrett's, all of them. Just forest and fog and silence. And ahead, through the mist, a figure walking toward me. I knew the shape of him before I could see his face. Garrett. He stopped, looked up, and even though I couldn't see him clearly through the fog, I could feel his relief. "Maya, you made it." Where are we? I don't know. Somewhere between. I think we broke something when we both burned at the same time. Are we dead? I don't know that either. He came closer. Through the mist, I could finally see him properly. Young, maybe 25, dark hair, kind eyes, exactly how I'd imagined him. Real. You're really here, I whispered. So are you. And then the mist began to pull back, revealing what lay beyond. La fin. Chapter 10. The Truth in the Static. The mist pulled back like a curtain, and there, stretched in every direction, was a graveyard of towers, not hundreds, thousands, maybe more, each one at a different stage of decay. Some recent, wood still solid, glass intact. Others ancient, collapsed into themselves, swallowed by moss and time. They stretched to the horizon and beyond, disappearing into fog that never quite lifted. Garrett and I stood in the middle of it all. Jesus Christ, he whispered. I walked to the nearest tower, climbed the half-rotted stairs carefully, testing each step. At the top, I looked through the broken window, a desk, a cot, a radio, and on the desk, a log. I reached through the shattered glass and pulled it out. The handwriting was neat, precise. The dates were from 1952, June 8th, 1952, first day at Ridgeline Tower. The isolation is more complete than I expected. It suits me. After what happened in the war, after what I did, this feels right. Penance, maybe. I flipped through pages. June 22nd, 1952. I keep hearing voices on the radio. Static, mostly. But sometimes I swear there are words underneath. Someone calling out. I respond, but no one answers back. July 14th, 1952. I tried to hike down yesterday. Walked for 6 hours. Ended up back at the tower. I don't understand. The trail should lead somewhere. July 30th, 1952. I was wrong about the voices. Someone is there. A woman. She says her name is Sarah. She's in a tower too. She understands. The final entry was August 15th, 1952. The fire is coming. I can smell it. Sarah says she sees it from her tower. She's screaming. I can hear her burning. I can hear... The rest was scribbled, illegible, like the hand writing it had been shaken too hard to form letters. I climbed down and showed Garrett. He read it in silence, his face pale. They're all the same, he said. Aren't they? All these towers. Same story, different people. Yeah. We walked through the graveyard. Each tower we passed had the same setup, same dimensions, same equipment, same logs telling the same story with different names, different decades, 1947, 1963, 1979, 1988, 2003, 2017, on and on. All of them ending the same way, fire, screaming, loop reset. How long has this been happening? Garrett asked. I don't know. A century? More? We kept walking. The towers thinned out ahead, giving way to open space. And in the center of that space, something vast, not a structure, not exactly, more like a wound in the landscape, a place where reality had been scraped away, leaving something underneath, something that pulsed, that breathed. We approached it carefully. As we got closer, I could hear it, not with my ears, deeper in my bones, a sound like static, like the hiss between radio stations. But underneath, if you listened carefully, voices, thousands of them, millions, all talking at once, all crying out, all trapped. What is it? Garrett whispered. I stopped, started again. I think it's what's been holding us, all of us, everyone who ever got stuck in a tower. But what is it? I didn't have an answer. We stood there looking at it, this thing that defied description. And I felt its attention turned toward us, not hostile, not exactly, more like recognition. You're still here. The voice wasn't external, it was inside my head. Old, tired, patient. After all that, after fighting, after burning, you're still here. Let us go, I said out loud. I can't. Yes, you can. No, you don't understand. I don't keep you. You keep yourselves. Garrett grabbed my arm. Maya, what's happening? Are you hearing? It's talking to me. To both of you, the voice corrected, but only one is listening. What do you want? I asked. Nothing. I don't want. I simply am. A space between. A place for those who cannot move forward, cannot move back. You bring yourselves here. Your guilt, your fear, your refusal to forgive. That's bullshit. We didn't choose this. Didn't you? What were you running from when you came to the tower, Maya? What moment were you trapped in long before you ever set foot in that cabin? Emma's face, the way her eyes had found mine, the blood on my hands that wouldn't wash away no matter how hard I scrubbed. That's different. Is it? You've been replaying that failure every day for 6 months, punishing yourself, burning yourself over and over in your mind. This place simply made it literal. I wanted to argue, wanted to say it was wrong, but I couldn't. And you, Garrett, what were you running from? Garrett had gone very still beside me. His voice cracked. I don't remember. Yes, you do. You've always remembered. You just don't want to look at it. Tell me, I said quietly to him. Whatever it is, tell me. He shook his head, pulled away from me. Garrett. There was a fire, he said, so quiet I almost didn't hear him. Before the tower, before the summer, a real one. He sat down hard on the ground, put his head in his hands. My apartment building in Eugene, March 1994. I was asleep. Smoke alarm woke me up. The hallway was full of smoke. I could hear people screaming, could hear them pounding on doors, trying to get out. What did you do? I climbed out my window, fire escape, got myself to safety, and then I stood there on the street, watching. I could still hear them inside, still hear them screaming. His hands were shaking. There was a family on the 4th floor. The Chins, Mom, Dad, 2 little kids. I passed their door on my way to the fire escape. They were pounding on it, screaming for help. The door was stuck, jammed from the heat or the pressure or something. I could have stopped, could have tried to help them, but I didn't. I just kept going, saved myself and left them there. Garrett. They found their bodies the next day, all 4 of them, huddled in the bathroom. They'd been so close to getting out. If someone had just helped them, if I had just... He broke, really broke, sobbing into his hands. I sat down beside him, put my arm around his shoulders. The tower job, he continued when he could speak again. I took it right after. Thought I could get away from it. Thought the isolation would help. But it just made it worse. Made me think about them more, about what I didn't do. You see, the voice said gently, this is why you're here, both of you. Not because I captured you, but because you couldn't leave your moments, couldn't forgive yourselves. So you stayed. Built your own towers, your own prisons, burned yourselves over and over because you thought that's what you deserved. So how do we stop? I asked, and I was crying now too. How do we leave? You already know, and I did. God help me, I did. We have to forgive ourselves. Yes. I don't know how to do that. Neither did any of the others. That's why they're still here, still burning, still looping. Because forgiveness is harder than punishment, harder than running. It requires looking at what you did, really looking, and choosing to be better instead of just being sorry. I looked at Garrett, at this man I'd come to care about even though we'd never met. Not really, not in any way that mattered in the real world. Emma was going to die no matter what I did, I said out loud, hearing it, testing it. The internal bleeding was too severe. 5 seconds wouldn't have changed that. 10 seconds, 20. She was dying before I even got there. The words hurt, but they also felt true. I froze because I knew. Some part of me knew she was already gone, and I couldn't face telling her. Couldn't face being the one who... My voice broke. She would have died anyway, I whispered. It wasn't my fault. Saying it didn't make the guilt disappear, didn't erase the image of her face or the weight of that moment, but it made it smaller, manageable, human-sized instead of infinite. I turned to Garrett. You were 23 years old, I said, in a burning building, terrified. You made a choice in a split second. It was the wrong choice, but you didn't start the fire. You didn't lock their door. You were just a scared kid trying to survive. I could have, maybe, or maybe you would have died too, or maybe the door was already too hot to touch, or maybe 100 other things. You don't know. You can't know. All you know is that you survived and they didn't, and you've been punishing yourself ever since. He looked at me, his face wet with tears. How do you live with it? He asked. How do you wake up every day knowing you could have done more? I don't know yet, but I think you start by deciding that you're worth saving too, that survival isn't a sin, that you can honor them by being better, by helping other people, by not wasting the life you got to keep. There, the voice said, and it sounded almost relieved. That's how you leave, not by running, not by burning, by choosing to carry it differently. The fog around us started to thin. The towers began to fade. Wait, I said, what about all the others? All the people still trapped? They'll find their own way, or they won't. That's not your burden to carry. But you can't save everyone, Maya. You already know that. The question is, can you live with it? Could I? I looked at Garrett, at the graveyard of towers disappearing into mist, at the vast patient thing that had held us, not maliciously, but simply because we'd needed something to hold us when we couldn't hold ourselves. Yeah, I said quietly. I think I can. The world lurched, and everything went white. I woke up in the tower. My tower. The real one. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The radio was intact on the desk. The cabin was clean, undamaged, like nothing had happened. I sat up slowly, my head pounding. How long had I been unconscious? Hours? Days? I checked the log. The last entry was from yesterday, my handwriting. Normal observations about weather and wildlife. Nothing about Garrett, nothing about fires or loops or impossible geography. Had I dreamed it all? I grabbed the radio. Tower 7, do you copy? Static. Garrett, if you're there, please respond. Nothing. I checked dispatch. Frequency. Prospect Point to dispatch. Do you copy? Copy. Prospect Point. Good to hear from you. We've been trying to reach you since yesterday. Carla. Real Carla. Not the flat, wrong version. Sorry, radio was acting up. All good, just checking in. You see any lightning overnight? I looked out the window. Clear sky, no smoke on any horizon. Negative, all clear. Copy, keep an eye out. Storm system moving in tomorrow. Will do, prospect point out. I set down the receiver and walked to the window. Tower 7 was there on its ridge, dark, abandoned, exactly as it should be according to the records. A decommissioned structure that had burned down 30 years ago. I stared at it for a long time, and then I saw it, just for a second. A flicker of light in the window, so brief I might have imagined it, but I knew I hadn't. I picked up the radio, switched to channel 4. The Ranger frequency. Garrett, you there? Static, long and empty, and then so faint I had to strain to hear it. I'm here. I made it out too. Relief flooded through me. Where are you? Home. Eugene, back in my apartment. Or I think I'm back. Everything feels thin, like I'm not quite here yet. But I can see sunlight, real sunlight. I can hear traffic outside. Same. I'm still in the tower. But it's different, real. Do you think we're actually out? Or is this another loop? I thought about that. Looked around the cabin. Everything felt solid, real. The way things did when you weren't dreaming them. I think we're out, I said. I think we made it. Silence. Static. And underneath, thank you for not giving up on me, for pushing until we figured it out. Thank you for being there, for making me feel less alone. What happens now? I looked out at the forest, at the sky, at the world that stretched beyond this ridge. Now we live with it, I said. We carry what we did, honor the people we couldn't save by doing better, being better, not running anymore. You make it sound easy. It's not, but it's possible. That has to be enough. A long pause. I'm going to volunteer, he said suddenly. Fire safety education. Teach people about smoke alarms, escape plans, all of it. If I can stop one fire, save one family, maybe that's how I make it right. That's good. That's really good. What about you? I don't know yet. Maybe go back to being an EMT, or maybe something else, but I think I need to stop hiding, face people again, try to help, even knowing I won't save everyone. That's brave. It's terrifying. Same thing sometimes. We sat with that, the static between us gentle now, almost comfortable. Maya? Yeah? I'm glad it was you in the tower next to mine. I'm glad we found each other. My throat went tight. Me too. I should probably go. Figure out how to actually be alive again. Yeah, me too. Neither of us moved to hang up. Will I hear from you? Again? He asked quietly. I don't know. Maybe, if the frequencies line up. That's not how radios work. No, but nothing about this worked the way it was supposed to. Maybe we get one more impossible thing. A soft laugh through the static. Maybe. Take care of yourself, Maya Worth. You too, Garrett Chen. The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, holding the silent radio, looking out at Tower 7. Then I stood up, packed my things, wrote my final log entry, and started the long climb down. Chapter 11. Descent. The helicopter came 3 days later. I'd radioed dispatch that morning, told them I was done, that I needed to come down. Carla didn't ask questions, just said they'd send someone when weather allowed. I spent those 3 days in a strange liminal space, still in the tower, but not of it anymore, like I was already halfway gone. I kept the routine, morning scans, noon check-ins, dusk sweeps, but my heart wasn't in it. I was just marking time. The forest felt different too, less oppressive, The silence was just silence now, not the loaded, waiting kind. The trees were just trees. Tower 7 stayed dark on its ridge. I didn't try to reach Garrett again. Part of me was afraid that if I did, the radio would just hiss static, that he'd never been real at all, that I'd spent 2 months talking to myself, unraveling. Better to leave it uncertain, better to believe. On the second night, Emma came back. Not like before, not angry or accusing or twisted wrong, just there, sitting on the cot. When I came in from checking the weather, I didn't jump, didn't scream. "Hey," I said, "hey." She looked younger than I remembered, less like the broken thing in the car and more like who she'd been before. Dark hair pulled back, kind face, the face from the photos her mother had shown me. "Are you real?" I asked, "or am I imagining this?" She smiled a little. "Does it matter?" "I guess not." I sat down at the desk. We looked at each other for a moment. "I've been angry at you," she said finally, "for a long time." "I know, but I'm not anymore." "Why not?" She shrugged. "Because being angry takes energy, and I'm tired, and because—" She stopped, looked out the window at the dark. "Because you've been punishing yourself enough for both of us. More than enough. I should have done more. Maybe. Probably. But you were also scared and 26 and doing your best in an impossible situation. People are allowed to be imperfect. Even EMTs." I felt tears coming. Didn't fight them. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I know. I've always known. That's the thing. I knew you cared, even in the ambulance. Even when you were lying about how okay I'd be. I could see it in your eyes. You wanted to save me. You tried. It just wasn't enough. It should have been. Yeah, but it wasn't. And you can carry that forever. Make it your whole identity. Burn yourself over and over in towers real and imagined. Or you can decide that you're more than your worst moment, that you deserve to keep living too." She stood up, crossed to where I sat, put her hand on my shoulder. "My mom asked you if I was scared. You lied and said no. That was kind. But here's something true. In those last seconds, I wasn't thinking about dying. I was thinking about my dog, this stupid golden retriever named Biscuit, about how I'd forgotten to say goodbye to him that morning, about how he'd be waiting at the door when I got home, and I wouldn't be coming home." Her hand tightened on my shoulder. "That's what dying is like. It's not poetic. It's not meaningful. It's just small, stupid things you'll miss. And the people who loved you trying to figure out how to keep going without you. How did they do that? Keep going? Badly at first, then less badly. Then one day they realize they can think about you without falling apart. That they can honor you by living fully instead of just surviving. That's what I want from you, Maya. Not your guilt, not your endless sorry, just your life. Lived as well as you can manage. That's the only apology that matters." I was crying hard now, ugly gasping sobs. I don't know how. Nobody does. You just start, one day at a time, one good choice at a time, until eventually it becomes who you are instead of just what you're trying to be. She leaned down, kissed the top of my head. "I forgive you. Now you have to forgive yourself." When I looked up, she was gone, just me and the dark and the quiet. But this time, the quiet felt like peace. The helicopter pilot was the same guy who dropped me off. He didn't comment on how I looked, hollowed out, probably, haunted, changed in ways that didn't show on the surface. He just helped me load my gear and gestured to the open door. I climbed in, strapped myself in, looked back at the tower one last time. It looked small from here, fragile, a tiny box suspended in the air, surrounded by endless forest. I wondered who would come next, what they'd be running from, whether they'd find what I'd found or get lost in it forever. The helicopter lifted, the tower shrank below us, and then the ridge curved away, and it was gone. "Good summer," the pilot shouted over the rotors. I thought about that, about Garrett and Emma and the graveyard of towers, about fire and static, and the choice to keep carrying versus the choice to be carried. "Yeah," I said, "in a way." He nodded like that made sense. We flew south, away from the towers, away from the silence, toward roads and towns and the messy, complicated world of the living. I watched the forest pass below. So much of it, so many places to get lost, but also so many ways to find your way back. When we landed, my mom was waiting. I'd called her from dispatch, told her I was coming down early, asked if she could pick me up. She hadn't asked why, just said yes. Now she stood next to her car, shading her eyes against the sun. When she saw me, her face crumpled with relief. I walked over, dropped my bag. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, baby." She pulled me into a hug. I let myself be held, let myself be small for a minute, let myself cry again. Different tears this time, clean tears. "You look terrible," she said when she finally let go. "I feel terrible." "Good, that means you're still alive." She popped the trunk. I loaded my gear, climbed into the passenger seat. Louise was in her carrier in the back. The cat yowled when she saw me, indignant, accusing. "I know," I told her. "I'm sorry. I'm back now." My mom started the car. We pulled out onto the highway. "You want to talk about it?" she asked after a few miles. "Not yet." "Okay." We drove in silence. Not uncomfortable, just present. After a while, she reached over and squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you're back." "Me too." And I meant it. The first few weeks were hard. I moved back into my apartment, unpacked, tried to settle back into normal life. Everything felt too loud, too crowded, too bright. I'd wake up at dawn out of habit and have nowhere to scan, nothing to log. The silence of the city, cars and voices and life happening all around, felt louder than the silence of the tower. I thought about Garrett a lot, wondered if he was having the same adjustment, if he'd followed through on the fire safety volunteering, if he thought about me. I thought about Emma too, about her family, about Biscuit the golden retriever waiting by a door that no one would come through. 2 weeks after I got back, I drove to the cemetery where Emma was buried. It took me 3 tries to get out of the car. When I finally did, I found her grave easily, fresh flowers from a recent visit, a small photo in a weatherproof frame, her smiling, younger than when I'd known her, happy. I stood there for a long time, not knowing what to say. Finally, "I'm trying to live better, to be better. I don't know if I'm succeeding, but I'm trying." The wind moved through the trees. Birds sang. The world kept going. "Thank you for forgiving me. I'll work on forgiving myself. It might take a while." I left flowers, not fancy ones, just grocery store daisies, simple, real. On the way out, I passed a man visiting another grave, older, gray hair. He nodded at me. I nodded back. Both of us carrying our dead. Both of us still walking. 3 weeks after I got back, I applied to be an EMT again. It took everything I had to fill out that application, to sit through the interview, to answer honestly when they asked why I'd left. I had a patient die I said. A young woman, car accident. I froze for a few seconds when I saw how bad it was. And even though those seconds probably didn't matter, I convinced myself they did. That I'd killed her. I couldn't get past it. So I ran. The interviewer, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and tired face, nodded. Did you? Kill her? No. She was going to die anyway, but I needed to believe I had that much power. That I could have saved her if only I'd been better, faster, braver. It was arrogant in a way, thinking everything hinged on me. And now I know I'll make mistakes. I'll lose patience. I'll freeze sometimes or make the wrong call or just not be enough. But I also know that's part of being human. And people deserve humans taking care of them, not perfect heroes, just real people doing their best. She smiled a little. When can you start? I started 2 weeks later. The first call I ran, my hand shook the entire time. Minor car accident, no serious injuries, just a woman with a cut on her forehead that needed stitches. But when I saw her sitting in the car, bleeding, scared, for a second, she was Emma. For a second, I couldn't breathe, and then I did. Breathed through it, counted backward from 10 like Emma had taught me, climbed out of the ambulance, grabbed my kit, did my job. The woman was fine, 12 stitches and a tetanus shot. Afterward, my partner, a younger guy named Marcus, asked if I was okay. Yeah, I said, just rusty. You did good. Thanks. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. 6 weeks after I got back, I tried the radio, just once, late at night. Couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts. I pulled out the old hand-crank emergency radio I'd bought at a yard sale, tuned it to channel 4, the Ranger frequency. Static. I almost turned it off, but then anyone copy Garrett's voice, distant, broken up. I grabbed the handset. Tower 7? Static surge. Maya, can you hear? I hear you. Barely. How are you? Good. Better. Started. Volunteer program. Teaching kids about safety. The signal was degrading fast. I'm proud of you. You? How? I'm back at work. EMT again. It's hard, but I'm managing. Knew you could? Garrett, I think we're losing the signal. I know, wanted to say thank you for everything. Thank you, too, for being real, for helping me find my way out. Not out, just through. The static swallowed him. Garrett? Nothing. I waited 5 more minutes. Just static. Then I turned the radio off, sat there in the dark of my apartment, Louise purring on my lap, traffic sounds filtering through the window. He was right. We weren't out. Not really. We were just through the worst of it, learning to live with what we carried. And that was enough. Chapter 12. Resolution. Life didn't fix itself overnight. I wish I could tell you it did. That coming down from the tower, facing Emma, forgiving myself, that it all clicked into place like a puzzle solved. But healing doesn't work that way. Some days were good. I'd run a call, save someone, come home feeling like maybe I was doing okay. Like maybe I deserved to be here. Other days, I'd see a car accident and have to pull over 3 blocks away to throw up. I'd hear a certain tone of fear in someone's voice and freeze for just a second, long enough to remember, long enough to doubt. Those days, I had to work harder, count backward from 10, breathe through it, remind myself that perfect wasn't the goal, present was the goal. Marcus noticed. Of course he did. You can't work that closely with someone and not see when they're struggling. You got ghosts. he said one night after a particularly rough shift. Kid on a bike, head injury, touch and go for a while, but he'd stabilized. Everyone's got ghosts. Yeah, but yours are loud. I didn't argue. You see someone about them? He asked. Like, professionally? I'm thinking about it. Don't think. Do. So I did. The therapist's name was Dr. Reyes. She had an office that smelled like lavender and old books, comfortable chairs, a window that looked out on a garden. I told her about Emma, about the tower, about Garrett and the fire and the loops. She didn't tell me I was crazy. She didn't try to explain it all away as stress or exhaustion or some kind of breakdown. She just listened, took notes, asked questions. Do you think it was real? She asked after the third session. The towers, the loops, Garrett. Does it matter? It matters to you. That's enough. I thought about that. I think some of it was real, I said finally. The guilt was real, the fear, the feeling of being trapped in a moment I couldn't escape, whether the towers and the forest and Garrett were literal or metaphorical. I don't know. Maybe both, maybe neither. But what I learned there was real. What I faced was real. And what did you learn? That I can't save everyone. That trying to be perfect only makes me worse at being a present. That survival isn't a sin. That forgiveness, real forgiveness, is a practice, not a destination. She smiled. That's good work, Maya. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does, but it's a start. 3 months after I came down, I got a letter, no return address, postmarked from Eugene, Oregon. Inside just a single page, handwritten. Maya, I don't know if this will reach you. I found your mom's address through some old dispatch records. Sorry, probably a privacy violation. I needed to tell you that I'm doing okay. Really okay for the first time in years. The volunteer work is good, hard some days. I taught a fire safety class at an elementary school last week, and one of the kids asked if I'd ever been in a fire. I told him yes. Told him I'd made mistakes. Told him that's why I was there, to help other people not make the same ones. He said that was cool, that I was like a superhero with a tragic backstory. Kids, right? I think about the tower sometimes, about you, about what we went through. I'm still not sure I understand what happened. Whether it was real or some kind of shared psychosis or something else entirely. But I know this. You saved me. Not from the fire, from myself, from the loop I'd been stuck in since 1994. You made me look at what I'd done, really look at it, and then you showed me it was possible to carry it differently. I'm trying to do that. Some days are easier than others. I hope you're trying too. Thank you for being real, for fighting, for not giving up on me even when I'd given up on myself. If the frequencies ever line up again, I'll be listening. Garrett. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer, next to Emma's obituary, next to the acceptance letter from the EMT program, next to all the other pieces of my life that hurt and mattered, evidence that I was here, that I was trying, that I was learning to carry it all. 6 months after the tower, I was working a night shift when the call came in. Structure fire, apartment building, multiple residents trapped. My chest went tight. Marcus was driving. He glanced over. You good? Yeah, go. We pulled up to chaos. Flames climbing the side of a 5-story building, people screaming, smoke so thick you couldn't see the stars. I grabbed my gear and ran. The next hour was a blur, helping people out, treating smoke inhalation, burns, panic attacks, holding a woman's hand while she screamed her daughter's name, waiting to hear if the firefighters had found her. They did. She was okay, hiding in a bathtub on the 3rd floor, scared but alive. At one point, I was wrapping an elderly man's burned hand when I looked up and saw him. Not Garrett. Someone else, younger, Asian, standing across the street, staring at the fire with an expression I recognized. Guilt, horror, the look of someone who'd gotten out but left others behind. I finished with the elderly man and crossed to the younger one. "Hey, you okay?" He looked at me. His eyes were wet. I tried to help. I knocked on doors, but the smoke was so thick and I couldn't breathe, and You got out. I left them. I heard them screaming, and I left them. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Listen to me. You did what you could. You survived. That's not a sin. That's not something to carry like a curse. The fire started. People panicked. You made choices in seconds that most people will never have to make. You don't get to be perfect. You just get to be human. But no, listen, you're going to want to punish yourself. To replay it over and over, looking for what you could have done differently. And maybe you'll find something. Maybe you'll realize you could have tried one more door. Or maybe you'll realize that door was already too hot to touch and you would have died trying. Either way, you survived, and you get to choose what you do with that. You can let it trap you, or you can use it. Honor the people who didn't make it by living better, by helping others, by not wasting the life you got to keep." He stared at me. "Who are you?" "Someone who learned this the hard way." I gave him my card, told him to call if he needed to talk, if the guilt got too loud. Then I went back to work. Later, Marcus asked what I'd said to the kid. Just that he didn't have to carry it alone, that survival isn't something to apologize for. Heavy conversation for a Tuesday night. "Yeah, well, someone told me that once. Figured I'd pass it on." He was quiet for a minute. "You're different than when you started," he said. "Calmer, maybe, or just steadier." "I'm working on it." "It shows." I looked out the ambulance window at the city passing by. People in their apartments, living their lives, carrying their own grief and joy and complicated histories. All of us just trying to figure out how to be human together. That night, I went home and pulled out the radio again, tuned it to Channel 4, keyed the mic. "Tower 7, this is Maya. If you're out there, if you're listening, I just want you to know I'm okay. Still trying, still learning, but okay." Static, just static. I waited 5 minutes. Nothing. "I hope you're okay too. I hope you're living, really living, not just surviving, but actually living. Building something good from what we went through." More static. "Thank you for being there when I needed someone, for showing me I wasn't alone, for fighting with me instead of giving up." I took a breath. "I'm going to let you go now, not forever, just for now. I need to be here, in this world, with these people. I need to practice being present instead of lost in the static." My voice cracked. "But if you ever need to reach out, if you're stuck again or scared or just lonely, I'll be listening. Channel 4. I'll always be listening." I set down the mic, turned off the radio, and then I put it away. Not hidden, just stored. In the closet with my camping gear and old photos and all the other pieces of my history that I didn't need every day but wanted to keep. evidence of where I'd been, proof that I'd made it through. 1 year after the tower, I threw a dinner party, nothing fancy, just my apartment, my mom, a couple of co-workers, Marcus and his boyfriend, Dr. Reyes, who'd become something like a friend. Louise tolerated everyone with regal disdain from her perch on the bookshelf. We ate pasta, drank wine, told stories, laughed. At one point, Marcus asked how I'd spent my summer the year before. Fire lookout, I said, up in the Cascades, totally isolated for 3 months. Jesus, that sounds awful. It was, and it wasn't. It was what I needed at the time. Would you do it again? I thought about that, about the tower and the silence and the way the forest had held me when I couldn't hold myself. No, I said, I don't think I need to anymore. Later, after everyone left, I stood on my balcony and looked out at the city, lights stretching in every direction, millions of people, millions of stories, all of us carrying something. The night was clear. I could see stars between the buildings, and for just a second, so brief I might have imagined it, I thought I saw a flicker on the horizon, a distant light, like a tower somewhere far away, still burning, still watching. I raised my glass to it. Here's to getting through, I said to the night. And then I went inside, back to my life, my cat, my choices, back to the work of being human, imperfect, present, trying. It was enough. Dutch out there. Epilogue, what we carry. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I think about the graveyard of towers, about all those people still trapped, still burning, still looping through their worst moments. I wonder if they ever find their way out. I wonder if new towers appear when new people get stuck. I wonder if somewhere right now someone is sitting in a lookout cabin smelling smoke that isn't there, talking to a voice on a radio that shouldn't work, slowly realizing they're not where they think they are. I can't save them. I know that now, really know it. Everyone has to find their own way through, face their own ghosts, choose their own forgiveness. All I can do is be here, be present, help the people in front of me, and sometimes, late at night, turn on an old radio and say into the static, if you're out there, if you're stuck, if you're scared, you're not alone, I'm here, and it's possible to get through, I promise. It's possible. 2 years after the tower, I got a call from the Ranger Service. They were doing a historical records project, going through old logs, digitizing them, trying to preserve the history of the fire lookout system. We found something interesting, the archivist said, in the logs from the Prospect Point, your tower. What's that? There are entries from your summer, standard observations, weather, wildlife, nothing unusual, but there are also entries that don't match your handwriting. Conversations logged with someone at Tower 7, dated throughout your entire 3-month stay. My heart stopped. That's impossible. Tower 7 was decommissioned. We know. That's what makes it interesting. The handwriting matches logs from 1994, from a ranger named Garrett Chin. Silence. We're thinking maybe someone was playing a prank, or maybe you found his old logs and copied them for some reason. But we wanted to check with you, did you? I don't remember, I said quietly. It was a strange summer, isolated. My memory's fuzzy on some of the details. Okay, well, we're just documenting everything. For the record. For the record, I repeated. After I hung up, I sat very still for a long time. Then I pulled out Garrett's letter, read it again. Real ink, real paper, real handwriting. evidence that he'd existed, that we'd both existed, that what we'd gone through had mattered. I put the letter back in the drawer. Some mysteries don't need to be solved. Some things are true whether you can prove them or not. 3 years after the tower, I was training a new EMT. Young woman, 24, nervous, eager. On her second day, we got a call. Motorcycle accident. Bad one. The rider was still conscious when we arrived, mid-20s, leg crushed, blood everywhere. Am I going to die? He kept asking. My trainee froze. I saw it happen, saw her face go blank, saw the panic in her eyes. I put my hand on her shoulder, squeezed gently. Breathe, I said quietly. Count backward from 10, then do your job. I'm right here. She breathed, counted, moved. We worked together, got him stabilized, into the ambulance, to the hospital. He lived. Afterward, in the ambulance bay, she broke down, crying. I froze. I fucking froze. I could have. You didn't. You breathed. You pushed through. You did your job. That's all anyone can ask. But what if next time I freeze longer? What if then you'll freeze longer, and then you'll breathe, and then you'll do your job? Being scared doesn't make you bad at this. It makes you human. And humans are allowed to be afraid. She looked at me. Does it get easier? No, but you get better at doing it scared, at pushing through anyway, at forgiving yourself when you're not perfect. How long did it take you to learn that? I thought about the tower, about the fire, about 3 months of burning. I'm still learning. She laughed, a little broken, a little relieved. That's honest, at least. That's all I've got. 5 years after the tower, I got an email. Subject line, thank you. Dear Maya, you probably don't remember me. We met briefly at an apartment fire about 5 years ago. I was the guy standing across the street, watching everything burn, feeling like shit about getting out alive. You gave me your card, told me I didn't have to carry it alone. I didn't call. I was too messed up, too stuck in my own head. I spent the next year in a really dark place, quit my job, stopped seeing friends, basically did everything you probably told me not to do. But I kept your card, and eventually, when I couldn't stand my own company anymore, I called. You probably don't remember that either. You talked to me for 20 minutes, told me about someone you'd lost, about how you'd learned to carry it, about how survival was a choice you made every day. I'm writing because I want you to know that conversation saved my life. Literally. I'd been planning to end it that night. Had the pills, had the note written. But something you said stuck with me. You said, don't waste the life you got to keep. So, I didn't. I got help, started therapy, joined a support group for fire survivors, eventually started volunteering with the Red Cross, helping other people who'd lost everything. Last week, I helped rescue a family from a house fire, got them out before the fire department arrived. They're okay because I was there, because I was alive, because I chose to keep going. I thought you should know that the thing you did, giving me your card, talking to me, not letting me disappear into my guilt, it rippled out. It saved more people than just me. So thank you for seeing me, for not letting me give up. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you found your own way through. Daniel Park. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back. Daniel, I remember you. I remember the look on your face. I remember recognizing it because I'd worn it myself. I'm glad you're still here. I'm glad you found your way through. I'm glad you're using what you learned to help others. That's all any of us can do. Keep going, keep trying, keep helping. You didn't waste the life you got to keep. That matters more than you know. Maya. After I sent it, I sat back and looked at the ceiling. Emma would have liked Daniel, would have liked knowing that her death, her moment, had somehow led to this, to saving others, to ripples spreading outward. It didn't make it okay, didn't erase what had happened, but it made it mean something, and maybe that was enough. 10 years after the tower, I went back, not to Prospect Point. I didn't think I could handle that, but to the trailhead, the place where it had all started. I hiked up as far as the first ridge, found a spot where I could see out over the valley, where I could see the peaks stretching in every direction. Somewhere out there, maybe 4 miles northeast, was my tower, or what was left of it. I didn't look for it, didn't need to. I just stood there, breathing the mountain air, feeling the wind, being present. And then I said, out loud, to the forest and the sky and whatever vast patient thing might still be listening, I made it, through the guilt, through the fire, through all of it. I made it, and I'm still here, and I'm still trying, and that's enough. The wind moved through the trees, birds sang, the world kept going, and so did I. The end. Thank you for listening. I hope you sleep well tonight. I hope your dreams are kind. And if you're carrying something heavy, if you're stuck in a moment you can't escape, I hope you find your way through. Not out. Through. There's a difference. This is the Midnight Narrator signing off. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more bedtime horror. And if you got a story idea, drop it in the comments. I'm always listening. Good night, and good luck with your towers.